Chapter 1173. Why is that young man still blocking the way? He's the Great Qin's envoy, the Black Dragon King. That young man is in trouble. On both sides of the road, countless people pointed at Yi Chen and discussed. Many of them had pity and sympathy on their faces. Subsequently, everyone saw the young man in black with a monstrous murderous aura walk toward Yi Chen and the young man. Wu Gaomin felt very uneasy. He only knew that the Great Qin's envoy, the Black Dragon King, was looking for Yi Chen, but he did not know why. Was it an enemy or a friend? He could not help but take a deep breath in as he thought to this point. He took a few steps forward and cupped his fists. Master Black Dragon King, however, the young man in black did not even look at him from the beginning until the end. He walked past him and eventually arrived before Yi Chen. The young man's slightly ferocious eyes met Yi Chen's calm gaze. At that moment, the atmosphere seemed a little cold. Wu Gaomin's heart sank. Just when he was about to speak, he saw the young man in black suddenly kneel before Yi Chen, causing the ground to shake violently. The young man looked at Yi Chen in a daze. His cold, emotionless eyes were moist at that moment. "Master." A slightly hoarse and excited voice slowly came out of his mouth. Everyone was so shocked that they couldn't react for a moment. "And Master?" Wu Gaomin was so shocked that his eyeballs almost popped out. The Great Qin's envoy, the Black Dragon King, whom even the Emperor of Daluo had to respect, actually called Yi Chen his master? Yi Chen looked at the young man kneeling before him quietly. He took a good look at his slightly mature facial features and had mixed feelings. "Little guy, you've changed a lot. I almost couldn't recognize you." Under everyone's shocked gazes, he patted the young man's shoulder heavily with a gratified expression. "Not bad." The young man in black before him was Xiao He. He was the hatched product of the snake egg he had obtained from the divine dragon pool in Miaojiang on Earth. After the spiritual energy recovery on Earth, he let it enter the sky-roaming Dragon King's dragon transformation pool to absorb the WYRM's secret treasure. It then transformed from a snake into a WYRM. Yi Chen named it Yi Demon. However, when they arrived at the ancient desolate realm, they encountered a spatial storm, causing Xiao He to be separated. Who would have thought that they would meet again here? The black-clothed youth's eyes were slightly moist, and his lips trembled as he said, "Master, Little Black has been searching for you with great difficulty." It was precisely his actions that shocked the others to the point they couldn't close their mouths, and it even caused the steel torrent to be stunned. The legend in their eyes, the Dark Dragon King who was as indifferent as a giant beast of war, was actually the servant of a youth? Wu Gaomin's thoughts were in a mess. Great Qin's Black Dragon Guard was Yi Chen's servant, so what was Yi Chen's relationship with Great Qin? "All right, don't disturb the others," Yi Chen said in between tears and laughter as he extended his arm to help her up. Xiao He stood up and nodded heavily. He turned around and resumed his previous cold temperament. "Black Dragon Guards, listen up. Escort my master into the embassy. Kill anyone who tries to stop us." Here. An earth-shattering sound suddenly exploded in the void. Then, thousands of black-armored figures separated from the group and walked at the very front with surging killing intent. The entire capital of the Daluo dynasty was instantly cleaned up. Following that, countless citizens of the capital saw a scene that they would never forget for the rest of their lives. An army of iron-blooded ferocious beasts escorted a young man into the capital, and no one dared to stop them. Wu Gaomin did not dare to follow. He could only rush to Marshal Saint Mountain and the palace. Clearly, he wanted to report this earth-shattering news. In the embassy, Yi Chen and Xiao He sat opposite each other in a heavily guarded room. "Master, when I was swept into the void and severely injured when I woke up, the first thing I thought of was to look for you guys." Xiao He spoke slowly and told him about his experience after he separated from Yi Chen. "However, because I was injured at that time, I couldn't move around much. Later on, I accidentally fell into the demon region." "Demon region?" Yi Chen was secretly surprised. As if sensing his confusion, Xiao He explained, "There are people in the ancient desolate realm. There are sea beasts and wild beasts. The demon region is where the wild beasts gather. It's located in the southern part of Zhongzhou." Yi Chen came to a realization and looked at him in surprise. "How did you obtain such a cultivation base later on?" He could already feel that Xiao Hei's cultivation base had skyrocketed, rising from golden core to mid-nascent soul. His strength was comparable to an ordinary martial saint. If he revealed his true form, even a 5-revolution martial saint would not be his match. At that time, because the Demon Lord's tomb fell into internal strife, I was chased and had no choice but to escape into the Demon Lord's tomb. I didn't expect to absorb the Demon Lord's blood essence by chance, causing my strength to skyrocket. He seemed to be sneering. The current Demon Emperor of the Demon region covets the Demon Lord's blood essence in my body, but it's not convenient for him to forcefully attack me. He could only confer me the Black Dragon King and secretly set up the Demon Clan's secret descent in my body. Demon Clan's secret descent. Yi Chen squinted as a cold gleam flashed through his eyes. Subsequently, he extended his hand and pointed between Xiao Hei's brows. He suddenly realized that there was a palm-sized loach in his body eating his blood essence. What a demon emperor! Yi Chen sneered. His actions are equivalent to treating you as a long-term meal ticket. He wants to consume you completely over the years. At this point, killing intent surged in his eyes. Fortunately, you met me in advance. Otherwise, he would have succeeded. How did you become the envoy of the great Qin dynasty? Yi Chen asked again. I formed the Black Dragon Guards back then. My goal was to use their power to find Master. I met Ing on the way. Xiao He recalled. Ing followed me back to the demon region. I don't know what method he used, but he actually persuaded the Demon Emperor to form an alliance with him. Then, Ing led the forces of the southern region into the central state and started the 100 Empire War. At that time, I didn't want to interfere, but I heard that Master appeared in the Tianfeng Sea area and was severely injured by an Emperor's throne powerhouse. He stared at Yi Chen with his scarlet eyes and his lips were filled with coldness. At that time, I wanted to avenge Master. Coincidentally, Ing declared war on the Great Yin Imperial Dynasty, so I led the Black Dragon Guards to take revenge on the Great Yin Imperial Dynasty. Thank you. Yi Chen was moved. He reached out and patted his shoulder lightly. He said in a gratified manner, I'm very pleased with your growth. However, the Great Yin Emperor Lord alone can't kill me. I'll settle the score with him in the future. By the way, Master. Xiao He nodded. Then, he seemed to have thought of something and suddenly said, I know where the Patriarch and Yi Wushuang are. P.S. Chapter 3 has been updated today. It's Valentine's Day. Spend it at home. Don't go out. End of this chapter. Chapter 1174. Yi Chen was stunned. Then, he narrowed his eyes. Do you know where the Patriarch and Wushuang are? Now that Xiao He had been found, apart from his daughter, Su Yuhan, and his parents, he was most worried about the Patriarch and Wushuang. He was not too worried about the Patriarch. After all, the Patriarch was a tribulation stage almighty in the cultivation world in his previous life. The person who could kill him had probably not been born yet. Instead, he was most worried about Wushuang. Wushuang was a human sword spirit. Although he was human, he was not as good as ordinary people and could easily be at a disadvantage. Among the overlords of the eastern wilderness, there's a special force called a Huang Kingdom. There are only women in this country and not a single man. Xiao He nodded slowly and said, Even the Empress of a Huang Kingdom is an extraordinary woman. It's said that the way they reproduce is to land on an island and recruit men from all over the world to have sex with them on the island. Moreover, the descendants they give birth to are all women. Yi Chen was stunned at first. Then, shock appeared in his eyes. Don't tell me that the Patriarch is in this Ahuang Kingdom? That's right. Xiao He grinned and said in amusement, I don't know what method the patriarch used to subdue the empress of a Huang kingdom, but the latter listened to him and was loyal to him. Yi Chen did not know whether to laugh or cry when he heard that. However, he could accept it after thinking about the patriarch's lustful nature. He could only say that the patriarch was indeed the patriarch. Master, after the news of you being injured spread, the patriarch secretly came to the Tianfeng Sea area from the eastern wilderness and killed all the sons of the great Li Emperor, Shang Wudao. Xiao He continued. The patriarch even took all of Shang Wudao's concubines. Shang Wudao couldn't defeat him, so he could only ask for reinforcements from the great Yin dynasty. That was why the patriarch escaped back to a Huang kingdom. The corner of Yi Chen's lips twitched slightly. He had to admit that the patriarch was really ruthless. Not only did he kill all his sons, he even made her a cuckold. Anyone would go crazy. He could not help but ask, what about Wu Shuang? Yi Wushuang's situation is a little more complicated. Xiao He's expression froze as he said, I heard that he joined the Sword Hut. After the news of your injury spread, he crossed the Middle State to the Tianfeng Sea area and killed Shang Wudao until he fled. Sword Hut? Yi Chen frowned. It was the first time he had heard of this name. Xiao He shook his head slightly and said, The Sword Hut is a hidden power. It is said that there are only two people in the Sword Hut. One is the master and the other is the disciple. Other than that, there is no third person. Most importantly, the Sword Hut is a taboo in Zhongzhou. Rumor has it that the successors of the Sword Hut once caused a bloodbath in Zhongzhou. They single-handedly suppressed many large sects and were seen as heretics in the ancient barren world. Speaking of this, his gaze flickered. Thus, every time a successor of the Sword Hut is born, he will become the target of public criticism and be suppressed by the central province. The smile on Yi Chen's face faded slowly. His eyes looked grim. Who's Wu Shuang's master? I'm not sure. Little Black shook his head. No one has seen his teacher. They only know that he is the master of the Sword Hut. In reality, outsiders don't even know where the Sword Hut is. The master of the Sword Hut. Yi Chen secretly frowned as his eyes flickered non-stop. If he could not find the Sword Hut, how was he going to find Wu Shuang? By the way, master, Little Black said, when Wu Shuang came to the Tianfeng Sea area to hunt down the Emperor of Great Li, he lured the Emperor of Great Yin out. The Emperor of Great Yin tried to kill Wu Shuang, but at that time, there seemed to be an Emperor's throne powerhouse standing behind Wu Shuang. The other party intercepted the Emperor of Great Yin. As soon as that was said, even Yi Chen's expression changed. An Emperor's throne powerhouse? Could it be the master of the Sword Hut? Even though he had never fought with an Emperor's throne powerhouse before, he could still feel from his first battle with the Emperor of Great Yin, Emperor Xianku. An Emperor's throne powerhouse was probably equivalent to the soul formation stage in the cultivation world. It should be the master of the Sword Hut. Little Black nodded. However, Wu Shuang and that Emperor's throne powerhouse disappeared. I tried all kinds of methods, but I couldn't find any information. Yi Chen smiled helplessly. Even though there was an Emperor's throne powerhouse standing behind Wu Shuang, he was still worried. After all, Little Black had said that the Sword Hut was regarded as heretics by the central province. One Emperor's throne powerhouse might not be enough. Little Black seemed to have thought of something and suddenly said, Master, where's Little Mistress? Yi Chen's eyes dimmed. Then, he told him everything about how he had been separated from his daughter. Little Mistress is missing? Little Black's expression changed, and the viciousness that had been hidden from the depths of his eyes appeared again. I always thought that Master and Little Mistress were inseparable. I didn't expect this to happen. Before the incident, I handed her over to Mu Kaiwei. Therefore, my initial plan was to come to the Daluo dynasty to meet you, the Great Qin's envoy. Yi Chen shook his head and said, I didn't expect the Great Qin's envoy to be you. Now, many of my doubts have been resolved. I plan to return to the Tianfeng Sea area next. I hope there will be some gains. In reality, he was burning with anxiety. In such an uneasy environment, Mu Kaiwei did not have the ability to protect the little girl. Little Black grinned. His ferocious face was like a bloodthirsty beast. All right, I'll follow Master to the Tianfeng Sea area this time. It's time to settle the score with the Emperor of Great Li. Not long after, an extremely respectful voice came from outside. Master, the Emperor of Great Luo has been waiting outside for a long time. Master, you can meet the Emperor of Great Luo. If we want to return to the Tianfeng Sea area, we'll need to use the wormhole of the Great Luo. There's no need to go through so much trouble. He clenched his fists and said calmly, It's a piece of cake for me to tear through space and arrive at the Tianfeng Sea area now. However, if you want to bring the Black Dragon guards with you, you should go through the wormhole. Outside the embassy, the current Emperor of Great Luo was dressed in plain clothes as he stood respectfully outside the door. Behind him stood many figures, and more than 10 of them faintly exuded a transcendent aura. Creak, the embassy door opened. Yi Chen and Little Black stepped out. Almost at that moment, the Emperor of Great Li was shocked. He hurriedly bowed. I'm the Emperor of Great Luo, Pei Qinglan. Greetings, Imperial Lord, Great Qin's envoy, Black Dragon King. Greetings, Imperial Lord, Great Qin's envoy, Black Dragon King. The people behind him knelt on the ground in unison. Without exception, their eyes were filled with respect. Little Black was used to this scene. He said coldly, Your Majesty, this is my master, Yi Chen. The Emperor of Great Li bowed even lower. Greetings, Imperial Lord Yi. Chapter 1175. An hour later, in the Daluo Palace, Yi Chen and Xiao He sat at the head of the table. All sorts of delicacies were placed in front of them, and there were dancers dancing gracefully. The Daluo Emperor, Pei Qinglan, sat on the dragon throne and led a group of ministers to toast Yi Chen. Although Yi Chen was not interested, he still responded with a smile on account of the former's enthusiasm. As if sensing his thoughts, Xiao He put down his wine glass and said calmly, Your Majesty, the two of us have come today to ask for a favor. The Daluo Emperor instantly understood and clapped his hand. The dancers in front of everyone immediately retreated. The former then looked at Yi Chen with respect. I wonder what Emperor Yi needs this humble king for. Yi Chen smiled lightly. I'd like to borrow your Majesty's wormhole to go to the Tianfeng Sea area. Is that possible? The Daluo Emperor was slightly stunned. Clearly, he did not expect Yi Chen's request to be so simple. He then frowned and said, Of course. However, Emperor Yi might not know that the situation in the Tianfeng Sea area is a little complicated. Is there anything you need us for? The flattery in his words was self-evident. Putting aside the fact that Yi Chen had helped him greatly before, Yi Chen was a genuine emperor's throne stage powerhouse. No dynasty would be willing to give up the opportunity to befriend an emperor's throne powerhouse. Yi Chen was about to decline when he heard Xiao He say, If your Majesty really wants to, why don't you lend us a few people? Yi Chen could not help but look at him. Xiao He said softly, Master, since the Emperor is willing to help, we might as well borrow a few fighters from him. It can be considered as helping us solve some trivial matters. May I know who you want to borrow? The Daluo Emperor said in a daze. A cunning look flashed through Xiao He's eyes. I'll lend you half of the Daluo Martial Saint Mountain's power. The so-called Martial Saint Mountain was the residence that the Daluo dynasty had specially built for all the martial saints in the Daluo realm. It was also known as the Daluo First Mountain. On the Martial Saint Mountain, there were a total of more than 30 martial saints, and half was more than 10. The Emperor revealed a troubled expression, and he seemed to be slightly hesitant. However, he gritted his teeth and said, All right. So long as I'm able to help Emperor Yi, then I'll naturally do my best to assist you. As soon as he finished speaking, His gaze swept out and descended onto the violet-clothed old man, Wu Gaomin, and he said, "Senior Wu, you count the number of people and make a trip with Emperor Lord Yi. Here." Wu Gaomin stood up and replied. This was a vast grassland, and the atmosphere was very tranquil. A few lone wolves could be vaguely seen drinking in the exposed shallows with their heads lowered. Buzz, however, this tranquility was broken in the next moment. Lone Wolf, who had been drinking water with his head lowered, instantly fled in all directions, as if he had encountered something terrifying. The azure void began to distort. When the distortion reached its limit, it was as if a pair of invisible hands had torn a hole in the void. With the appearance of a huge gap, a monstrous killing intent immediately swept out from the gap. A skinny figure slowly walked out of the crack in the void. When his gaze landed on the scene beneath his feet, there were too many emotions in his eyes. Tianfeng Sea area, I'm back again. Behind him, many figures walked out with Xiao He in the lead. Behind them was an army that seemed to be made of killing intent. The killing intent was so dense that it was like a brush that was splashing ink in the air. Master, is this the Tianfeng Sea area? Xiao He, who was dressed in black armor, raised his eyes and sized up the world. Wu Gaomin sighed, I've been to the Tianfeng Sea area once, but it's been a long time. My memories have long since faded. There were 17 figures standing behind him, and the aura they emitted caused the space to tremble slightly. They were the 17 martial saints of the Daluo dynasty. With such power, even if Yi Chen did not attack, it was enough to sweep through the entire Tianfeng Sea area. Xiao He looked at Yi Chen in confusion. Master, where are we going next? Naturally, we'll go to the King Mu fort first. Yi Chen took a step forward and headed southeast according to his memory. Xiao He and the rest hurriedly followed. The group flew thousands of kilometers along the way, and all they saw were scenes of devastation or people fighting. Clearly, the Tianfeng Sea area had experienced a huge upheaval during Yi Chen's disappearance for a month. Someone's coming this way. Yi Chen suddenly looked ahead and stopped moving. He spread out his divine consciousness. He could sense that there was a group of people rushing over in a panic 5 kilometers away, and there was a large group of people chasing after them. There was even a voice that Yi Chen was familiar with. It was an old man in linen clothes with an extremely hunched back. It was the 9-Yang sword leader who had gone missing. People of the Kunwa Holy Land, you won't be able to escape. If you know what's good for you, land obediently and be bound. Perhaps I, the Emperor of Great Li, will spare your lives. There were 2 martial saints in front of the pursuers. One of them was dressed in black and had an extremely sinister expression. The Kunwa Holy Land would rather die than surrender. There was blood at the corner of the 9-Yang sword leader's mouth. Even though he was in a sorry state, he still held a long sword in his hand and retreated while fighting. You're courting death. The black-clothed old man's gaze turned cold. Then, he joined forces with a martial saint beside him and charged over. Old 9-Yang, we'll send you to meet the palace master of Tai Ching Palace right now. Rumble, under the combined forces of the 2 Second Revolution martial saints, the 9-Yang sword leader, who was already injured, was even more injured. His right arm was sent flying, and blood splattered into the sky. Sword leader. When the Kunwa Holy Land disciples behind saw this, their eyes could not help but crack open in grief. The 9-Yang sword leader's aura surged as he chose to burn his life force. Go quickly, preserve the last bloodline of the Kunwa Holy Land. At this moment, a faint voice suddenly came from the void. 9-Yang sword leader, how have you been? At the next moment, a skinny young man with long hair slowly appeared in the air. The young man looked at him calmly. It's you. The 9-Yang sword leader was stunned at first. When he saw Yi Chen's face clearly, disbelief filled his eyes. Sir, the 2 martial saints' expressions changed slightly. They looked at Yi Chen as if they were afraid. This is a matter of the Great Li dynasty. I hope you don't. They stopped abruptly before they could finish speaking. They saw more than 10 figures attacking Yi Chen from behind. The aura that each of the figures exuded was stronger than theirs. At that moment, intense shock surged in the eyes of the two black-robed old men, and their bodies trembled uncontrollably. Nearly 20 martial saints. Where did this come from? They were not the only ones. Even the 9 Yang sword leader and the rest were stunned. Yi Chen took a good look at the two black-robed old men and the people in greatly attire behind them. His gaze turned cold. People of the Great Li dynasty? End of chapter. Chapter 1176. Hearing his unexpected words, Yi Zichen was stunned. A black-robed old man immediately took a deep breath in and cupped his fists. I'm Zhihua. May I know who you are? You don't even know me. Yi Chen interrupted him and said with a forced smile, Didn't Shang Wudao tell you guys that if it weren't for the Emperor's throne powerhouse, he would have died in my hands long ago? Zhihua was stunned at first when he heard that. Then, he widened his eyes and looked at Yi Chen carefully. His expression changed suddenly. It's you, it's you. He was not the only one. Even the expression of the black-robed old man beside him changed drastically. Extreme shock surged in his eyes. It was him. Didn't he die from an emperor's throne powerhouse's attack? It could be said that the battle between Yi Chen and the 6 martial saints a month ago had spread throughout the Tianfeng Sea area. Now that Yi Chen had come back to life, how could the two of them not be shocked? At that moment, Xiao He brought the Black Dragon Guard army over. He looked at Yi Chen inquiringly. Master? Kill them all. Don't leave a single one alive. Yi Chen said calmly. All right, Xiao He grinned and took a step forward. He suddenly charged at Zhihua and the other man. 2 noisy old dogs, come and accept your death. Oh no, run. Zhihua and the other man's expressions changed. They actually split up in an extremely treacherous manner. Clearly, they wanted to escape. They're just 2 useless second transition martial saints. If we let you escape from under our noses, that would be the biggest joke in the world. Wu Gaomin chuckled and joined the battle. He and Xiao He attacked together, and Zhihua and the other man died on the spot. Too weak, Xiao He returned to Yi Chen's side and muttered. When this scene entered the eyes of everyone from the Kunwu holy ground, a tempestuous storm arose in their hearts. The 2 martial saints who had almost beheaded the heads of their Kunwu holy land were dealt with so easily? The 9 Yang sword leader's pupils constricted violently. He could clearly see that both Xiao He and Wu Gaomin were much stronger than him. If he was not mistaken, Xiao He seemed to have called Yi Chen master. He shook his head and did not dare to think further. He took a few steps forward and bowed to Yi Chen solemnly. Thank you for saving me, fellow Yi. It's nothing. Yi Chen shook his head lightly and looked at him in surprise. Fellow Jiang, if I remember correctly, didn't you go missing? Previously, the people from your Kunwu Holy Land even said that I was the one who caused your disappearance. When the people of the Kunwu Holy Land heard this, their faces were filled with guilt. Fellow Yi, you might not know this, but after you killed the patriarch of the spirit ruins that day, I was shocked by your mystical ability. I gained something by chance and returned to the sect to enter seclusion. The 9-Sun Sword head bitterly smiled and said, I never expected that someone would use your name to invite me out that afternoon. They said that they wanted to discuss how to deal with the Spirit Ruins Paradise. At this point, he could not help but sneer. When I went to attend the appointment, I was ambushed from behind and fainted. When I woke up, I realized that I had been imprisoned. All of this was caused by the Great Li dynasty colluding with the people of the Central Plains. Then it must be the same for the Grand Purity Palace Master. Yi Chen nodded lightly. What the 9 Yang sword head said was not much different from what he had guessed. Fellow Taiching has already fallen. The eyes of the sword head of Jiang were filled with hatred. Taiching and I tried our best to escape, but we were hunted down by the Dali dynasty. Unfortunately, Taiching was not as lucky as I was, to have been saved by Yi Futian. What are your plans for the future? Yi Chen asked. The 9 Yang sword head sighed softly. What other plans can I have? I just want to preserve a trace of the Kunwa Holy Land's bloodline, but the Great Li dynasty refuses to let it go. At this point, he could not help but bow deeply to Yi Chen. If fellow Yi doesn't mind, I'm willing to follow you. He knew very well that no matter how strong Yi Chen was, the dozen or so martial saints behind him were already a terrifying force. There would definitely be a way out if he followed him. If you choose to follow me, you'll definitely face the Great Li dynasty. Aren't you afraid? Yi Chen smiled faintly. Of course, I believe fellow Yi. Moreover, I can't wait to tear Shang Wudao into pieces. The 9-yang sword head snorted coldly. Then, he seemed to have thought of something. By the way, fellow Yi, I'm afraid you've come to settle the score with Shang Wudao this time, right? That's right. Why? Yi Chen said. The 9-yang sword head took a deep breath in and said, however, I'm afraid you'll be disappointed because Shang Wudao isn't in the Tianfeng Sea area. To be precise, other than the 2 people you killed earlier, there's not a single martial saint in the Tianfeng Sea area. What? Shang Wudao isn't in the Tianfeng Sea area? Xiao Hei's gaze turned cold. Could it be that this guy received the news in advance and knew that we were coming, so he ran away? The 9-yang sword head shook his head and said, No. In fact, just 3 days ago, the Great Li dynasty sent all their forces to conquer the eastern wilderness. Conquer the eastern wilderness? Why? Yi Chen thought of something and asked immediately. Fellow Yi, you might not know. The 9-yang sword head explained patiently. In this month, the people of the eastern wilderness of Huang Kingdom came to the Tianfeng Sea area and killed all of Shang Wudao's descendants. They also took Shang Wudao's women. After Shang Wudao completely pacified the Tianfeng Sea area, he joined forces with the Great Yin Imperial Dynasty's prince and sent all his forces to the eastern wilderness to suppress the Huang Kingdom. Yi Chen and Xiao Hei could not help but look at each other subconsciously when they heard that. They were still talking about how the Patriarch of Hell was in the Huang Kingdom. It was also the Patriarch of Hell who killed Shang Wudao's son and cuckolded him. Who would have thought that Shang Wudao would run off to take revenge? Thinking to this point, Yi Chen said, How powerful are they? The 9-yang sword head took a deep look at Wu Gaomin and the rest and said, With the Great Li dynasty's original strength, it naturally can't compare to them. However, after the people brought by the Emperor of the Great Yin Imperial Dynasty in Central State, he paused for a moment, and a hint of fear flashed in his eyes. It's said that the Emperor of the Great Yin Imperial Dynasty is already a 9-revolution martial saint. Moreover, he has an emperor weapon bestowed by the Emperor of the Great Yin Imperial Dynasty. As his voice fell, the expressions of Wu Gaomin and the rest changed. The expressions of Wu Gaomin and the others also changed. Wu Gaomin sucked in a breath of cold air and said, Emperor Yi, the Great Yin Imperial Dynasty has a total of 9 princes, and whether it is in terms of talent or battle prowess, they are all unparalleled. He gulped and said, If we add the emperor weapon bestowed by the Emperor of the Great Yin Imperial Dynasty, no one below the Emperor's throne stage is a match for him. Xiao Hei could not help but look at Yi Chen when he heard that. Master, if that's really the case, I'm afraid it won't be easy to deal with the Patriarch's strength. On the other hand, the 9-yang sword head looked at Yi Chen dumbfoundedly. His mind was buzzing. Emperor Yi. The Emperor. Other than the Emperor's throne powerhouses. Who else could be called the Emperor? P.S. Chapter 3 has been updated for today. End of this chapter. Chapter 1177. The Eastern Barren Territory was known as one of the 5 major regions of the ancient barren world. It wasn't like the Tianfeng Sea region or the Northern region, where dynasties and sects were everywhere. There were 3 transcendent forces that guarded this world for generations. They were the mysterious ancient Shi family, the Saint Demon sect, and the Huang Kingdom. These 3 forces divided the Eastern Barren Territory. The ancient Shi family rarely interacted with outsiders. The people of the Saint Demon sect cultivated demonic arts and acted lawlessly. As for the latter, the Ahuang kingdom was different from the other three forces. From the common people to the empress, the Ahuang kingdom was a country made up of women. They abided by the teachings of their ancestors and didn't allow men to enter the country. The Ahuang kingdom was built by the sea. Rumor had it that there was a mysterious island in the sea. Every year on the 7th day of the 7th lunar month, the Ahuang kingdom would send the women to the island and then invite the men in the eastern barren territory to enter the island to mate with them. Of course, this didn't mean that any man could enter the island. They had to be talented and handsome. Rumor had it that if a man and a woman liked each other on the island, they could find a quiet place to do it. Afterward, the man would leave of his own accord, treating it as a transaction and not to be entangled. When the women returned to the country, they would become pregnant. After giving birth, the babies would all be women. There were no exceptions. The women of the Ahuang kingdom would only choose one man in their lifetime and only do it once. Since the men were all talented and handsome, the women of the Ahuang kingdom had inherited their genes. It could be said that all of them were as beautiful as flowers and were graceful and graceful. Every year on the 7th day of the 7th lunar month, even disciples of the mysterious ancient Shur family and the Saint Demon sect wouldn't let go of this opportunity. It could be said that many of the people of the Ahuang kingdom were descendants of the Shur family and the Saint Demon sect. That was also why the Shur family and the Saint Devil sect would not deliberately target the Ahuang kingdom. The three parties maintained a relationship that was as close as fish and water. However, this balance was broken 3 days ago, causing the Ahuang kingdom to fall into internal and external troubles. The flames of war filled the Ahuang kingdom. It was no longer the country of women that outsiders envied. The huge light screen of the formation was like an upside-down bowl, covering the entire capital of the Ahuang kingdom. Countless valiant women stood on the city walls with swords in their hands, nervously looking out of the city walls. Over there, banners fluttered in the wind and surged with killing intent. Everywhere that met the eye was a dense mass of figures that covered the heavens and the earth, and a largely character was inscribed on every single banner. Dozens of figures with powerful auras stood on top of these figures. Although there were only dozens of them, the auras they emitted seemed to be even more intimidating than the army below. 3 days ago, the Emperor of Dali used all the power of the Dali dynasty in the name of revenge and crossed the border to attack Ahuang kingdom from the Tianfeng Sea area. After 3 days of fierce attacks, the Ahuang kingdom suffered successive defeat. They had already retreated to the capital. It could be said that the capital was the last barrier. If they lost again, the Ahuang kingdom would not be far from destruction. Countless female soldiers of Ahuang kingdom, who were guarding the city, stared at the people in the distance with hatred. They would never forget that these people had killed their way into their country, destroyed their homes, and humiliated their compatriots. The entire capital of the Ahuang kingdom was immersed in the dark clouds of war. It seemed that any random move would set off a new round of bloodshed. In a hall deep in the capital, the atmosphere was as intense as a volcanic eruption. The female soldiers in red robes, who were responsible for guarding the palace and protecting the empress, stood with swords in their hands. They stared nervously at the female soldiers in white in front of them. The battle seemed to be on the verge of breaking out. At the top of the hall, on the dragon throne, sat a woman with a fairy-like face, wearing a brocade robe embroidered with a fiery red coiled dragon. The woman's hair flowed down like a dark spring, and as her hair danced in the wind, it stirred up layers of black flowing light. She looked coldly at the figures below, like the golden coiled dragon on the brocade robe. It was as if it wanted to soar into the sky, and no one dared to look at it directly. "Imperial advisor, how dare you betray me?" If one looked closely, they would find that her face was slightly pale, and there was a faint black aura between her eyebrows. And she was the empress of the Ahuang kingdom, Jiang Lei. Betray. The person who responded to her was a woman in white clothes. She was no more than 16 years old, and she was as spotless as a fairy. Your Majesty, no, Jiang Lei, you betrayed my Ahuang kingdom first. Tell me clearly today. When did I betray the Ahuang kingdom? Jiang Lei raised her eyebrows with her hands behind her back. Her beauty made all the beauties pale in comparison. You're still being stubborn. The woman in white seemed to laugh mockingly and said, Fine. Today, in front of all the elders in the clan, I'll completely show you how licentious you are. Behind her stood several silver-haired old women. The old women were expressionless, and they faintly emitted a terrifying aura. They were the powerful elders of the Ahuang kingdom. They were formed after the previous empresses had retired. With a word, they could decide the identity of the heir of the Ahuang kingdom and change the world. The woman in white turned around and bowed to the silver-haired old women behind her. She said with a smile, Elders, may I ask if there's a rule in the Ahuang kingdom's ancestral teachings that prohibits men from entering the Ahuang kingdom? As soon as she said that, the expression of Jiang Lei, who was originally dignified on the dragon throne, changed slightly. A trace of panic flashed in her beautiful eyes. That's right. The silver-haired old woman in the middle who was leaning on a walking stick said slowly, The Ahuang kingdom does have such an ancestral teaching. Those who violate it will have their cultivation crippled and drowned in a pig cage. Wan Yinru, now that the Ahuang kingdom is facing a national crisis, why did you suddenly call us here? Another elder said with a look of displeasure. Elder, please calm down. The imperial tutor Wan Yinru smiled proudly. Then, he said with a faint smile, because what I'm going to say next involves the ancestral teachings. The next moment, he suddenly turned around and pointed at Jiang Lei on the dragon throne. He shouted sternly, Our most respected Empress, it's fine that you disobeyed the ancestral teachings and had an affair with a man. You even hid a man in the palace. As soon as he said that, everyone fell silent. Whether it was the silver-haired old women who were in high positions of power or the hundreds of female soldiers who were fighting each other, their expressions changed. At that moment, Jiang Lei's face became even paler. Her beautiful eyes revealed panic and despair. But, how dare you? With a loud sound, a silver-haired old man took a step forward and slapped Wan Yinru's face heavily. He said coldly, How dare you slander Her Majesty? Wan Yinru, do you have any sense of seniority in your eyes? Do you have the etiquette of a ruler and a subject? The slap landed. Even though Wan Yinru was a 5-revolution martial saint, she was still caught off guard and suffered a heavy slap. A trace of scarlet blood immediately flowed from the corner of her mouth. No. Wan Yinru ignored the pain on her face and suddenly roared hoarsely, No, I didn't slander her. I have witnesses. Chapter 1178. Witness. An elder stood up and said expressionlessly, What witness? Wan Yinru turned around and said, Bring her in. Not long after, under everyone's gaze, 2 female soldiers escorted a young girl dressed in a palace maid's robe into the hall. The moment Jiang Lei saw the young lady, she closed her eyes with a slight heartache. That was her personal palace maid, Qiao. She was usually in charge of grooming her and was almost inseparable. As if sensing the change in Jiang Lei's expression, Wan Yinru's face regained its smug expression. Elders, you all know Qiao, right? The elders nodded slightly. After all, they were the ones who had chosen Qiao to enter the palace when she was young. Wan Yinru looked like she was watching a good show and said, Qiao, tell us everything you know. Qiao subconsciously raised her head to look at Jiang Lei. She bit her lips and said guiltily, Your Majesty, I'm sorry. What's there to be sorry about? An elder shouted sternly, B*th, if you lie in front of all the elders today, I'll push you into the basin. The so-called basin was a form of torture used by Ahuang kingdom to punish people who had committed the most heinous crimes. They would push people into a pit full of venomous snakes and be bitten to death or poisoned to death by countless venomous snakes. Qiao's face turned pale when she heard that. She immediately stammered, I I can testify that Her Majesty really hid a man in the palace." Her words caused the expressions of the clan elders to change. They could not help but subconsciously glance at Jiang Lei. "Elders, I used to be the one to protect Her Majesty. Even when Her Majesty was sleeping, I would stay in the palace." Jiao Er's lips trembled as she said, "However, Her Majesty removed all the palace maids from the palace. Since then, she has never allowed us to go near the palace." "Bastard, what does that mean?" Some elders were furious. Wan Yinru was expressionless. "Continue." Xiao Er lowered her head and clasped her fingers tightly. "Later, when I was grooming Her Majesty, I found a lipstick on her neck." At this point, she gritted her teeth. "At that time, I thought that His Majesty was keeping a female pet in the palace, so I secretly sneaked into the palace. I didn't expect to hear. What did you hear? Hurry up and speak." A clan elder shouted. Xiao looked at her feet and shivered. "Then I heard Her Majesty talking to a man." As her voice fell, the entire hall was deathly silent. Everyone stared at Jiang Lei in disbelief. Their eyes were filled with shock. Since ancient times, a Huang kingdom had never allowed men to enter. But now, the Empress in their hearts had even raised a man in the palace? Even the elders on Jiang Lei's side couldn't help but change their expressions. One of them took a deep breath and stared at Jiang Lei. "Your Majesty, is this true?" Under everyone's gaze, Jiang Lei clasped her hands tightly together on her thighs, but she still said without blushing or panting, "I didn't." She knew that once she admitted it, she would be completely finished. Not only would she lose all her prestige in the kingdom, but she would also be punished by the ancestral teachings. That was not the main point. She knew that once she admitted it, she would implicate Quan. "It seems that this lowly servant is lying." An elder was furious on the spot. He looked at Xiao and scolded, "Someone, drag this lowly servant out and push her into the basin." As soon as he said that, Xiao instantly revealed a horrified expression. She couldn't help but look at Wan Yinru as if asking for help. "State Preceptor, save me, wait!" Wan Yinru suddenly stopped her. The many elders looked very unhappy. "Wan Yinru, what else do you have to say?" Meeting their gazes, Wan Yinru was also a little flustered. She couldn't help but blurt out subconsciously, "Elders, if you want to prove whether Her Majesty has raised a man or not, you just need to look at her chastity mark." As soon as she finished speaking, Jiang Lei, who was sitting on the dragon throne, trembled as if all the energy in her body had been sucked out. The so-called chastity mark was a medicine that would be painted on a girl's wrist the moment she was born. This medicine would not disappear throughout the year, but once a girl and a man intercourse, it would immediately disappear without a trace. The elders looked at each other and nodded in unison. One of them looked up at Jiang Lei and said, "Your Majesty, forgive us for our rudeness. However, this matter involves too many people. In order to prove your innocence, we can only offend you." As he spoke, one of the elders walked towards Jiang Lei. Seeing this, the state preceptor, Wan Yinru, looked at Jiang Lei with a gloating gaze. On the dragon throne, Jiang Lei's body was extremely weak. Her eyes were filled with despair. She could only watch as the elders walked towards her. She knew. From the next second, she would be finished. At this moment, an extremely violent force suddenly appeared in the main hall. It then attacked the elder in an extremely domineering manner. The elder's expression immediately changed. Then, he unleashed all of his cultivation and slammed his palm against the force. Rumble, the entire main hall immediately rumbled. Puff. The elder took a few steps back. After stabilizing himself, he immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. "Who is it?" At the same time, the other elders unleashed their auras as they looked around vigilantly. They were all above the third revolution Marshal Saint rank, yet they were unable to withstand a single attack from the other party. How could they not be nervous? At that moment, a calm voice exploded. "Is the ancestor's woman someone you old fellows can touch?" The voice was like a clap of thunder. Soon after, it stirred up an extremely terrifying storm in the main hall, causing the entire hall to shake faintly. At the next moment, a young man in a black robe slowly walked in from outside the hall. Although the young man was handsome, there was a trace of unruly and unrestrained expression between his brows. Coupled with the deliberate tug of his beard, it added quite a bit of mature charm to him. Most importantly, the young man's eyes revealed a hint of dignity that made it impossible for others to look him in the eye. As he appeared, Jiang Lei, who was sitting on the throne, was shocked at first. Then, a hint of gentleness flashed through her beautiful eyes. At that moment, the elders in the main hall were all shocked. With murderous intent on their faces, they said, "Who are you? Elders, did you see that?" Wan Yinru pointed at the young man and laughed loudly. "A man? There really are men in our Huang Kingdom's palace. It turns out that I did not slander Jiang Lei." The elders' expressions became extremely gloomy when they heard this. The young man acted as if he did not see anyone present. He walked straight towards Jiang Lei, who was sitting on the throne. "Didn't I tell you not to come out?" Jiang Lei seemed to be rebuking him as she complained. However, she could not hide the smile at the corner of her lips. "P.S. My head hurts a little. I don't know if it's because of the first snow of the year last night. I can only write 2 chapters today. I'll try to write 4 chapters tomorrow." Chapter 1179. Didn't I tell you not to come out? When she said that, Jiang Lei seemed to have forgotten that there were elders present. Instead, she looked at the youth in black in front of her lovingly. "How can I bear to let my little beauty be bullied by others?" The youth in black laughed maniacally. Then, in front of everyone, he reached out and pulled Jiang Lei into his arms. "Bastard! Brat, let go of Her Majesty!" Seeing this scene, the few clan elders present were all enraged. Even the countless female guards standing at the side who were arguing with each other also glared at the former. That was the empress of their Ahuang nation. She was pure and holy. How could she be profaned by a man? Feeling the youth's dishonest hand touch her buttocks, Jiang Lei's body went limp, and she almost collapsed to the ground. "Elders everyone, did you see that?" Wan Yinru sneered. "Our most respected empress is actually flirting with a wild man in public." The elders' expressions were extremely ugly. If they weren't worried that Jiang Lei was in the youth in black's hands, they would have already killed him. At this moment, an old woman slowly walked out from among the elders. The old woman's facial features were somewhat similar to Jiang Lei's. She looked at Jiang Lei with a pained expression and said, "Lei, is the truth really as Wan Yinru said?" Under everyone's gaze, Jiang Lei steadied herself and swept her gaze across everyone. She said with determination, "Mother, you're right. Quan and I are truly in love." After saying that, she looked at the youth in black sweetly. The youth in black was satisfied and proud. As soon as she finished speaking, the expressions of everyone present changed again, and they practically did not dare to believe their ears. Her Majesty was actually having an affair with a man when she knew that there were ancestral teachings? "Bastard Jiang Lei, you've really disappointed us. Jiang Lei has gone against the ancestral teachings and is no longer qualified to continue being the empress of a Huang nation. I suggest that we take her down on the spot and punish her according to the ancestral teachings." The elders' voices were as loud as thunder. Faced with such a situation, Jiang Lei seemed to be much more relaxed. She accepted everything with a smile. In the end, Jiang Lei's mother stepped forward and looked at the youth in black. "Who are you? Aren't you afraid of my Ahuang Kingdom's revenge? Old fellas, listen up." The black-robed young man chuckled in disdain. "My Dharma name is Patriarch Netherworld. I don't care what you want, but I'm going to take Jiang Lei away today. If you dare to stop me, I'll kill you." After saying that, he grabbed Jiang Lei's hand and swaggered out of the palace. "Where do you think you're going? Leave your life behind." Boom! At that moment, Wan Yinru made the first move. Majestic and vigorous Yuan Qi fluctuations instantly erupted, turning into a dazzling chain that sped towards the old ancestor and Jiang Lei. She wanted to deal with Jiang Lei today, so how could she let Jiang Lei leave alive? Scram! Ancestor Nether Spring laughed coldly as he stretched out his hand, and then he suddenly grabbed at the origin energy chains that whistled over towards him. Boom! As his hand grabbed forward, the space around the terrifying Yuan power condensed chains started to tremble. It was as if a pair of invisible hands were squeezing it until cracking sounds rang out. A break as a muffled sound rang out from the old ancestor's mouth, the space distorted to the extreme. The terrifying Yuan Qi chains were forcefully broken by his hand. How can he be so strong? Wan Yinru's expression suddenly changed when she saw that her attack had been broken. She subconsciously controlled her body to retreat. Bitch, you still want to run? However, at that moment, a huge hand suddenly grabbed her, directly grabbing her, and she couldn't move at all. Dead silence. The scene was dead silent. At that moment, everyone present looked at the old ancestor Nether in shock, their eyes filled with disbelief. Even the clan elders were no exception. As a fifth revolution martial saint, Wan Yinru couldn't resist at all. One must know that Wan Yinru's strength was ranked in the top 10 in the entire Ahuan country. Who are you? Wan Yinru felt that her body was about to split apart when she was grabbed in midair. Pa! The old ancestor Nether Spring raised his hand and slapped her face. Bitch, you're the one who caused all of this today. His slap went down. Wan Yinru's face was almost deformed. Pa! The old ancestor slapped her again. I never hit women, but I'll beat up every ugly woman like you who likes to be a bitch. Wan Yinru's teeth fell and she almost fainted. If Jiang Lei was known as the #1 beauty in the Ahuan country, then she, Wan Yinru, was the #2 beauty. However, the second beauty was called ugly by the old ancestor Nether Spring. Let go of Wan Yinru and Jiang Lei. Boom! Almost at that instant, the several clan elders present could no longer hold themselves back and attacked in unison. In the next moment, a powerful aura erupted. 6 extremely ferocious energy pillars whizzed out and ruthlessly bombarded the old ancestor Nether Spring. The old ancestor wants to leave. You want to stop me with just a few old women who are about to crawl into the ground? The old ancestor Nether Spring laughed wildly. Then, he stepped into the air and looked at the 6 people's attack. He waved his sleeve, and a majestic spiritual origin surged out, forming an energy shield around him. Bang, bang, the 6 people's attacks landed on the energy shield, but they only made a few soft sounds before they dissipated completely, as if they were extinguished by water. Is that all you've got? The old ancestor Nether Spring's smile was filled with undisguised contempt. It could be said that he was extremely arrogant, and his brows were filled with arrogance. His attitude caused the eyes of many women to shine, and they couldn't help but be moved. When the 6 clan elders saw that the 6 of them couldn't do anything to the other party even when they joined forces, their faces were filled with disbelief. One must know that the 6 of them were all 5 revolution martial saint. When they joined forces, even a 7 revolution martial saint would die on the spot. However, the young man in front of them had easily dealt with it. Who exactly was this young man? Aquan's strength has improved again. Jiang Lei, who was next to the old ancestor Nether Spring, moved her eyes slightly. It was obvious that she was also shocked by the old ancestor's battle strength. Don't be too complacent. At this moment, an elder's expression turned cold, and he said coldly, Everyone, set up the 6-ene convergence formation. In the next moment, the 6 of them immediately took mysterious steps, and their surging spiritual origin energy turned into light pillars that shot out. Then, they formed a light formation that enveloped the 6 of them. At that moment, Jiang Lei and Wan Yinru's expressions changed drastically, as if they had recalled some memories sealed in their sea of consciousness. If you like Evil Dad in the City, please collect. Evil Dad in the City. Chapter 1180. Rumble, boundless fluctuations of origin energy frantically spread out from the huge light formation that enveloped the 6 clan elders. This was a formation cast by 6 5-revolution martial saints with their full strength. The fluctuations caused everyone present to feel incomparably fearful. Terrifying fluctuations of origin energy whizzed out from the light formation, but they did not dissipate. Instead, they landed on one of the clan elders. The clan elder's aura instantly skyrocketed. 5 Revolution Martial Saint, 6 Revolution Martial Saint, 7 Revolution Martial Saint, 8 Revolution Martial Saint. In an instant, that person's aura directly skyrocketed from 5 Revolution Martial Saint to 8 Revolution Martial Saint, while the auras of the other 5 clan elders became dispirited. At that moment, even the Patriarch of Yellow Spring's frivolous gaze changed slightly, as if he felt the pressure. Ahuan, be careful. This is the 6-yin convergence formation of our Ahuan kingdom. It's said that it was created by the founding empress. It's cast by 6 people, gathering all the power of the 5 people and transferring it to the 6th person. Jiang Lei, who was being dragged by the Patriarch of Yellow Spring, said with a pale face. At that time, the founding empress of our Ahuan kingdom was already an emperor's throne expert. The Ahuan kingdom was founded 2,000 years ago, and the first empress had already reached the legendary emperor's throne realm. However, no one knew what she experienced that led to her death. This secret was only known to the empress and the clan elders. A formation created by an emperor's throne expert? The Patriarch of Yellow Spring's expression turned grave. He had already figured out the system of the ancient desolate world and knew how great the gap between the Emperor's throne realm and the martial saint realm was. Torrential energy surged endlessly within the 6th clan elder's body like a churning ocean. A dark and cold expression appeared on her aged face. Her eyes locked onto the Patriarch of Yellow Spring, then she sneered and suddenly formed a hand seal, spirit-suppressing seal. Bang! As her voice faded, frightening yuan power gushed out like a torrent, rapidly transforming into a glowing seal in the air. Rumble! The huge light seal fell like a meteor, directly shattering the void and suppressing the Patriarch of Yellow Spring. An all-out attack from an 8 Revolution Martial Saint. You've finally brought out your trump card. The old ancestor Yellow Spring sneered as he watched the enormous seal of light whistling over, and then he tossed Wan Yinru and Jiang Lei away. Back off! He shouted fiercely as he stretched out his hand. A ball of black flames suddenly surged out from his palm, and it seemed like a black flower that had bloomed from hell. As soon as the black flames appeared, the entire palace suddenly cooled down, as if the temperature had dropped by dozens of degrees. Yellow Spring's fire. As the old ancestor Yellow Spring shouted, the black flame in his hand turned into a black torrent in the shape of a dragon and collided with the huge light seal. At that moment, Patriarch Yellow Spring's face turned slightly pale. It seemed like he had consumed a lot of his quintessential origin energy to execute that attack. Boom, 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 boom. A deafening bang mixed with a violent wave swept out from the palace at that moment. As the black torrent in the shape of a dragon bombarded the huge light seal, the light seal instantly paused, and then cracks that could be seen with the naked eye appeared. In the end, with a cracking sound, it exploded. The formation that the 6 of them had executed was enough to make an 8 Revolution Martial Saint die on the spot, but it was broken at that moment. Wah! The 6 elders were sent flying, smashing countless golden pillars. Their pale faces were filled with disbelief. 139 Chinese. Pff. The old ancestor Yellow Spring took a few steps back, and a trace of blood could not help but flow from the corner of his mouth. His face was so pale that there was not a single trace of blood. Both sides were injured. No one was able to gain an advantage, but in general, the old ancestor Yellow Spring was still more skilled. Ahuan, are you all right? Jiang Lei cried out and immediately walked over to support the old ancestor anxiously. How could I be all right? The old ancestor Yellow Spring stabilized his body and swept a disdainful glance at the 6 elders, Is this all you 6 pieces of trash added together? Since you can't stop me, I'll leave with your empress. After saying that, he grabbed Jiang Lei's hand, turned around, and was about to walk out of the palace. However, in the next moment, the space in front of the two of them suddenly distorted. A black palm suddenly reached out from the distorted space and directly pushed the old ancestor Yellow Spring back. Haha, if we let you escape, then wouldn't all of our preparations be for naught? A faint laughter was heard. Who are you? The old ancestor Yellow Spring's eyes were cold. Hee, you don't even know the Saint Devil Sex old demon Hellion? Damn it. In an instant, several figures walked out of the distorted space. The leader was wearing a dragon robe, and the other was dressed in black. As soon as the words were spoken, the expressions of Jiang Lei and the injured elders of a Huang nation changed. It's you. The old ancestor Yellow Spring's gaze fell on the man in the dragon robe, and he sneered, "Son of a bitch, you're here to take revenge on me so soon?" The man in the dragon robe was the Dali dynasty's emperor, Shang Wudao. "You must die today." Shang Wudao stared at him and laughed out of extreme anger. When he thought about how the old ancestor had slaughtered all his children and even his most beloved woman, he wanted to tear the old ancestor Yellow Spring into 1,000 pieces. Faced with his ruthless words, the old ancestor Yellow Spring chuckled indifferently. "I have to say your woman's figure is really good, bastard." Shang Wudao's eyes were filled with murderous intent. At this moment, an old man in black next to him stood out and smiled faintly. "Fellow Shang, why waste your breath on a person who's about to die?" The old man in black had white sideburns, and his brows were filled with arrogance. Most importantly, the energy wave coming from his body made the elder's expressions change. Jiang Lei looked at the old man in black and said word by word, "Saint Devil Sex old demon Hellion." The 3 overlords of Eastern Wilderness were the Sure family, a Huang nation, and Saint Devil Sect. The old man in front of her was the peerless demon of Saint Devil Sect, old demon he. "You've finally come." Under everyone's gaze, the nation master of a Huang kingdom, Wan Yinru, covered her face and threw herself into the former's arms intimately. Feminine, Jiang Lei and all the elders were in disbelief. Who would have thought that the imperial preceptor of a Huang nation actually knew old demon Hellion of Saint Devil Sect, and they were so intimate with each other in public. Meeting everyone's gaze, old demon Hellion cackled, "Hee, I guess you must be very curious, right?" Old demon Hellion walked straight to the injured elders and squatted down to look at them. "To tell you the truth, this old man has been preparing for this day for over 200 years. 200 years? One of the elders tried to stand up, but found that he was powerless. He could only glare at him angrily. "In other words, you were already involved with Wan Yinru 200 years ago? If you like Evildoer Daddy in the city, please collect. Evildoer Daddy in the city." Chapter 1181. That's right. Wan Yinru walked over and said proudly, 200 years ago, I went to a Huang island as soon as I became the state preceptor and fell in love with Hellion there. I know you old farts abided by the ancestral teachings and didn't let me bring a man back. I hate you." Her expression was ferocious, so from that moment on, I made an agreement with Hellion that I would be his spy in a Huang kingdom. B***tch, you B***tch. Many of the elders were furious. Jiang Lei stared at her and said coldly, "Wan Yinru, since you and I both fell in love with a man, why did you poison me and expose Ah Quan's existence?" "It's very simple." Wan Yinru smiled coldly, "because I accidentally learned that the first founding empress of a Huang kingdom was an emperor's throne strong. After she died, she left behind a method to reach the emperor's throne, and Hellion needed it. And you are one of the keys to open the secret treasure of the founding empress." At this point, her expression was full of pride. "I knew that if I didn't pull you down from the throne and sow discord between you and the elders, it would be very difficult to deal with you." As soon as she finished speaking, the injured elders trembled violently, and regret appeared in their eyes. The founding empress of a Huang kingdom left behind a secret treasure? Jiang Lei's pretty face finally changed a little, and she was in disbelief. She knew that the founding empress of a Huang kingdom was an emperor's throne-strong practitioner, but she died later. But she didn't know that the former had left behind a secret treasure before she died. Very surprised, right? Wan Yinru smiled coldly. In fact, I didn't know at first, but Helian told me later. After I came back, I also secretly investigated, and it proved Huyen's guess. She couldn't help but look up at the elders. Elders, Wan Yinru was right? The secret treasure is under a Huang island. The so-called Ahuang Island was an island above the sea of a Huang kingdom. Every year on the 7th day of the 7th lunar month, the single women of a Huang kingdom would step onto the island and have sex with the men they liked. As soon as she said this, the expressions of the elders changed. It was obvious that she had hit the nail on the head. They originally kept this matter as the biggest secret in their hearts, planning to pass it on to Jiang Lei in the future. They didn't expect Wan Yinru to know. Traitor, Wan Yinru, you traitor! The clan elders cursed and cursed. They wanted nothing more than to tear Wan Yinru into pieces. If Jiang Lei's affair with the Patriarch of Hell disappointed them, then Wan Yinru's collusion with the Saint Devil sect in an attempt to steal the Ahuang kingdom's treasures made them extremely resentful. Why are you wasting your breath on these old women? Just kill him. We only want Jiang Lei anyway. Shang Wudao, the emperor of Dali dynasty, snorted coldly. All right, we'll do as fellow Taoist Shang says. Old Devil Helian laughed cruelly. Then, he walked toward the clan elders with a murderous aura. Wait! Right at this moment, Jiang Lei, who had been watching from the side, suddenly stopped them. Then, she quickly walked to the front of the clan elders and coldly stared at old demon Helian. If you dare to kill them, then you can forget about getting the founding empress's secret treasure. Stupid woman, what are you doing? Without waiting for old demon Helian to speak, old ancestor Yellow Spring's figure flashed over. Obviously, he wanted old demon Helian not to intervene. To the old ancestor, the life and death of these clan elders had nothing to do with him. Moreover, the so-called secret treasure that everyone was talking about was not attractive to him. No matter how great the secret treasure was, it was merely left behind by an emperor's throne realm expert. What kind of great expert's tomb had he not seen in his previous life? The clan elders looked at Jiang Lei in disbelief, as if they did not expect that Jiang Lei would still protect them at this moment. Jiang Lei looked at old ancestor Yellow Spring as if asking for help. Ah Quan, no matter what, they are still people of my Ahuang kingdom, and we are related by blood. As soon as she said that, the clan elders felt extremely guilty. It's really touching. Old demon Helian smiled faintly and squinted at Jiang Lei. Miss Jiang, don't forget that you can't even protect yourself and you still want to save them? I only know that you don't dare to kill me. Otherwise, you can forget about getting the founding empress's secret treasure. Jiang Lei stared back at him. Slap. Old ancestor Yellow Spring slapped her but heavily. Stupid woman, with me here, who can touch you? You? The greatly emperor, Shang Wudao, smiled disdainfully. I admit that you are stronger than me, but you are at most an 8-revolution martial saint. Fellow Helian is an 8-revolution martial saint, and there are even a few 7-revolution martial saint. What do you have to fight against us? That's right. The Saint Devil Sect's old demon Helian sneered. If you were at your peak, this old man might have some difficulty suppressing you. But when you fought with these old women just now, you were already injured. Then let's do it. Patriarch Yellow Spring stared coldly at them. His handsome face became a little twisted at this moment. Kill him! Old Devil Helian shouted and took the lead to attack old ancestor Yellow Spring. Monstrous devil chi gushed out of his body. Kill! At the same time, several 7th Revolution martial saints also unleashed their auras and charged forward. Clearly, they wanted to kill Patriarch Yellow Spring on the spot. Back off! Old Ancestor Yellow Spring flicked his sleeve and pushed Jiang Lei and the others back. Boom! With a sharp whistle, a black longsword shot out from Patriarch Yellow Spring's body. The black longsword was burning with black flames. Netherworld sword. It was the first time the Patriarch had revealed the magic treasure he had refined. Even Yi Chen had never seen it before. It meant that the pressure he was under was extraordinary. Die, Patriarch! In an instant, Patriarch Yellow Spring held the black longsword in his hand and slashed out a shadow-like sword chi at Old Demon Hellion. Old Demon Hellion's expression changed slightly. He seemed to have sensed the might of this sword and chose to dodge quickly. However, a 7th Revolution martial saint behind him was directly slashed in the chest by the sword. As his body split apart, the upper and lower parts were completely enveloped by the black flames, and then there was nothing left. What kind of flame is this? Seeing this scene, everyone's pupils constricted. Heavenly Demon Seal. With a flip of Old Demon Hulian's palm, black light condensed and turned into a huge black mark. Then, he slapped out with his palm. Heaven and Earth Level 4, Slaughter Sword. Countless sword shadows suddenly appeared in Patriarch Yellow Spring's hand. The entire palace seemed like it could be sliced into countless pieces at any time. Boom! The huge palm print collided with the sword shadows that filled the sky. Terrifying energy fluctuations spread out, causing the entire palace to shake violently. Tap, tap, tap. Patriarch Yellow Spring retreated repeatedly. I've said it before. You might be able to fight me at your peak. Unfortunately, you're no match for me in your current state. The Black Seal trembled, and Old Demon Hellion smiled disdainfully. If you like Evil Dad in the City, please collect. Evil Dad in the City. Chapter 1182. Is that so? The old ancestor Yellow Spring's gaze was cold as he suddenly smiled. I forgot to tell you that my sword isn't that easy to receive. In the next moment, among the sword shadows that were dispersing in the void, a gray aura suddenly condensed silently. Like a small snake, it then shot toward Old Demon Hulian's head. The gray sword aura was too fast, and it was too close. By the time Old Demon Hellion noticed it, it was already too late. Arg! He screamed as his body fell heavily to the ground. His body even began to wither at a speed visible to the naked eye. His miserable screams sounded like the wailing of ghosts and the howling of wolves. Under everyone's gazes, his body directly withered into a pile of rotten flesh. Only his divine soul shot out from his body. This was the old ancestor's slaughter sword. The gray sword aura was the slaughter sword aura. Your divine soul belongs to the old ancestor. The old ancestor Yellow Spring took a step forward and directly grabbed at his divine soul. Crown Prince, save me! Save me! Old Demon Hulian's divine soul frantically roared. Rumble, suddenly, a slender hand stretched out from the void and pointed at the old ancestor Yellow Spring's back. Get lost! The old ancestor Yellow Spring suddenly turned around and slashed out with his sword. A 3-meter-long sword aura whistled out, as if he wanted to cut down the huge hand. Bang! Kacha, however, under the huge hand, his sword was directly broken, and the flying sword in his hand also shattered. Puff! The old ancestor Yellow Spring continuously vomited blood. He had long refined the flying sword, and now that it was damaged, his mind was also injured. In the next moment, under everyone's gazes, a figure slowly walked out from the distorted space. It was a young man wearing an embroidered robe. The moment he appeared, the entire palace seemed to have dimmed. An invisible pressure made most of the people present kneel. The old ancestor Yellow Spring forcefully resisted the pressure. A 9-revolution martial saint. He must be a 9-revolution martial saint. Even he was in such a state, let alone Jiang Lei and the others. All of them vomited blood and uncontrollably prostrated themselves on the ground. The youth in the official robe looked around expressionlessly. When he saw Old Demon Hellion, who was only left with his divine soul, He couldn't help but say, "Trash, boom." Old Monster Hulyen's divine soul was immediately shattered. Everyone was so shocked that they couldn't say a word. He did not expect the other party to be so ruthless. When the young man in the official robe looked at old ancestor Yellow Spring, he could not help but be shocked. "You're able to resist my pressure. Greetings, Crown Prince." Taoist Shang Wu prostrated on the ground, trembling in fear. Too strong. One had to know that there was a 7th cycle martial saint among them, but they did not even have the qualifications to stand in front of the other party. Only at this moment did they realize that the Imperial Prince was not someone they could imagine. The Prince of Great Yin, Yin Jiuchong, Jiang Lei, was in despair. It was rumored that the Great Yin Sovereign Lord had a total of 9 princes. All 9 of them were the most outstanding geniuses in the entire ancient barren world. They had long reached the martial saint realm, and were only one step away from the Emperor's throne realm. "You're not bad." Yin Jiuchong looked at old ancestor Yellow Spring quietly. "If you're willing to submit to me, I can spare your life." "Who do you think you are?" Old ancestor Yellow Spring smirked coldly. "When I was dominating the universe, you were still AF** King Single Cell." Although he said that, the pressure in his heart multiplied. He was not the other party's match even at his peak, let alone now that he was injured. Could it be that the Patriarch had to abandon Jiang Lei and escape alone? At most, the Patriarch would find a place to hide and cultivate until he reached the soul formation stage. Then, he would come back and take revenge on that brat. The Patriarch was conflicted. He was confident that he could escape from Yin Jiuchong, but he could not bear to part with Jiang Lei. After all, he thought that Jiang Lei had treated him well. That was also the biggest difference between the Patriarch and Yi Chen. The Patriarch was a smart person. He would not force himself if he could not defeat him. As if sensing his conflict, Jiang Lei urged, "Quan, run. Don't worry about me. Just remember to avenge me. Run." Imperial Prince Yin Jiuchong's body was bathed in light as he landed gently on the ground. He was like a god looking down on the world. "No one has ever escaped from my hands. No one. Not even a 9 revolution martial saint." He walked toward old ancestor Yellow Spring step by step. "I'm going to refine you into a puppet and make you one of my 10 war puppets. Damn it, if I'm still a demon, how dare a perfected nascent soul junior like you act cool in front of me?" Old ancestor Yellow Spring groaned internally. Shang Wudao gloated as he watched this scene. "I've said it before. You'll definitely die today. Give up resisting." Imperial Prince Yin Jiuchong stretched out his hand like the hand of fate. Just as the old ancestor Yellow Spring was about to fight with his life on the line, an explosion suddenly came from the void. "You want to touch me? I won't allow that." The voice seemed to have pierced through the restraints of space, and resounded in everyone's ears. Kacha, the hand that Yin Jiuchong had stretched out, broke with a loud bang under this sound. Tap, 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 the former only felt an unparalleled pressure, causing him to take a few steps back and spit a mouthful of blood. "Who is it?" At this moment, his expression was no longer as calm as before. Instead, it was replaced by deep shock. One had to know that when he descended, he had already sealed off this space. No one below the Emperor's throne could break through it. However, now, thinking to this point, his expression changed abruptly, and his eyes that were looking at the void were filled with shock. When the old ancestor Yellow Spring heard this voice, he was stunned at first. Then, he seemed to have thought of something and could not help but exclaim, "Fellow Yi? Haha, old ancestor, you're in a sorry state this time." As a hearty laughter sounded, a huge crack suddenly appeared in the space above everyone's heads. In an instant, a young man with long hair in a green robe slowly walked out of the crack and landed on the ground. Who else could it be but Yi Chen? At that moment, the smile on Shang Wudao's face, who was originally extremely smug, froze. Disbelief surged out of his eyes as if he had seen a ghost. The old ancestor Yellow Spring's body shook. He then walked over quickly and hugged Yi Chen tightly. He said while smiling, "How can you be any better? I heard that you were beaten to death some time ago. I won't die even if you die." Yi Chen pushed him away. Only then did he realize that there was a faint trace of tears in his eyes. He seemed to be revealing his true feelings. Yin Jiuchong pretended to be calm and said, "Fellow." Yi Chen raised his hand and slapped him. Under everyone's horrified gazes, he directly slapped him to the ground. Yi Chen retracted his hand slowly and looked at him calmly. "Do you think you can call me fellow?" Chapter 1183. Slap. The crisp slap could be heard in the palace. Everyone stared dumbfoundedly at Yin Jiuchong, who was slapped to the ground by Yi Chen. That was the prince of the great Yin dynasty. His father was an emperor's throne powerhouse. Putting aside his identity, he was also a 9-revolution martial saint in terms of strength. Whether it was talent or battle prowess, he was one of the best in the ancient desolate realm. This person is too powerful. I'm afraid he's an emperor's throne powerhouse. The few elders of the Ahuang kingdom who were sitting in the corner looked at each other, and deep shock flashed in their eyes. Even the Patriarch of Hell was no exception. He had fought Yin Jiuchong before, so he knew very well how powerful the former was. However, he was slapped to the ground by Yi Chen now. He seemed to have thought of something as he thought to this point. Disbelief surged in his eyes as he looked at Yi Chen. "Fellow Yi." Yi Chen nodded lightly when he met his gaze. "Tsk." Patriarch Yellow Spring sucked in a cold breath. His heart was extremely shocked. Soul formation stage. Fellow Yi had actually stepped into soul formation stage. As a tribulation stage powerhouse in his previous life, he knew very well what kind of existence soul formation stage was. It could be said that countless talented geniuses were stuck at the perfected late-stage nascent soul stage, unable to take a step forward in their entire lives. Even the Patriarch of Hell had spent hundreds of years to step into soul formation stage. However, how long had he known Yi Chen? It had only been over a year. In just over a year, he had watched Yi Chen advance from spirit assembly to soul formation stage. "Fellow Yi, I'm convinced." The Patriarch of Hell clasped his fists at Yi Chen. "I'm convinced from the bottom of my heart this time." "Greetings, Divine Lord Yi." In the cultivation world, foundation-building cultivators were masters, golden core cultivators were true lords, nascent soul cultivators were great cultivators, and soul formation cultivators were divine lords. It was a form of address and status. Perhaps the Patriarch had a sense of superiority when facing Yi Chen because he was a tribulation stage powerhouse in his previous life. However, he had no choice but to admit defeat now. While the two of them were talking, Shang Wudao, the Emperor of Great Li, was ashen as he muttered to himself, "How is this possible? How is this possible?" Yi Chen had withstood a blow from an Emperor's throne fighter, which was shocking enough. Who would have thought that an existence as powerful as the Imperial Prince Yin Jiuchong was still no match for him? "Senior." At that moment, Imperial Prince Yin Jiuchong stood up as well. He stared at Yi Chen with respect. "I wonder if an Emperor's throne stage senior has arrived. If I've offended you in any way, please do it for my father's sake." His heart sank to rock bottom, and it was even to the extent that he was trembling. He'd completely lost the demeanor of an imperial prince. Not for any other reason, but because only an emperor's throne realm powerhouse could easily defeat him. It would have been better if Yi Chen had not mentioned Di Xianku. As soon as Di Xianku was mentioned, Yi Chen's gaze turned colder. He slapped him directly as if he was swatting a fly. "Kneel!" Suddenly, an invisible force came crashing down. Yin Jiuchong felt like he was being pressed down by an invisible hand and fell to his knees. "Senior, my father is the Emperor of Great Yin, Emperor Xianren." Yin Jiuchong's face was filled with humiliation. When had he, Yin Jiuchong, ever been treated like this? Yi Chen did not answer at all. His hand continued to press down. In Jiu Chong immediately felt as if he was carrying a mountain on his back. His head was stuck to the ground. He was crazy and unwilling. In the end, his entire body was stuck to the ground as if he was prostrating on the ground. No matter how he struggled, it was useless. Everyone was trembling with fear as they watched this scene. Was this the terror of an emperor's throne stage powerhouse? Written Chinese, I'll settle the score with you later. Yi Chen retracted his hand slowly. His gaze landed on Shang Wudao, the emperor of Great Li. He said with a faint smile, Shang Wudao, how have you been? Shang Wudao forced a smile and looked at Yi Chen with an extremely complicated expression. I just want to know, have you stepped into the emperor's throne stage now? Is it important? Yi Chen was expressionless. Yes, it's not important anymore. Shang Wudao took a deep breath in, and a wave of lethargy came from his body. As the saying goes, the winner is king, and the loser is a bandit. I have nothing to say now that I've fallen into your hands. He was the ruler of a dynasty after all. Naturally, he was not someone who was afraid of death and begged for mercy. Very well, I'll leave your corpse intact. Yi Chen nodded lightly and extended his hand to grab the former. Shang Wudao tried to resist, but he realized that he could not move at all. Blurg, Yi Chen reached out and broke his dantian directly. Why, you're so ruthless. Shang Wudao's face was filled with resentment. Yi Chen actually crippled his cultivation base. Yi Chen scoffed and pressed his palm on his head. He performed the soul-searching tactic forcefully. He wanted to know the whereabouts of Su Yuhan and his parents. Back then, Mu Kaiwei had said that after the ghost ship sailed into the Tianfeng Sea area, the Great Li dynasty had also participated in the operation to encircle the ghost ship. As the ruler of the Great Li dynasty, Shang Wudao definitely knew about it. The former's tragic voice rose and fell in the entire palace. It was as if he had experienced the cruelest punishment in the world, causing everyone to tremble in fear. Seeing this scene, the face of Imperial Prince Yin Jiuchong, who was suppressed on the ground, was filled with fear. Then, he seemed to have thought of something and gritted his teeth. Rumble, at the critical moment, he chose to self-destruct. However, it was his body that self-destructed. The remaining soul was wrapped in a ray of green light. It broke through the void and entered the spatial rift. Oh no, fellow Yi, he escaped. The Patriarch of Hell was shocked. You think you can escape from my grasp? Yi Chen chuckled softly as if he was disdainful. Then, he stretched out his hand and spread his fingers. He reached into the spatial rift before it closed. A barely audible scream came from the void, followed by a deafening roar. Yi Chen retracted his hand at the right time. The Patriarch of Hell asked, "How is it? I've destroyed his soul." Yi Chen frowned. He looked at the healing wound on his right index finger and said, "He should be carrying a primordial spirit treasure." This primordial spirit treasure actually chose to self-destruct. Among the elders of a Huang kingdom, a silver-haired old woman cried out in surprise, "That must be Di Xianbing's emperor weapon." Although he said that, he looked at Yi Chen with more and more fear in his eyes. The self-destruction of the emperor weapon did not cause any serious damage to him. At that moment, Jiang Lei lifted her sleeves and took a few steps forward. She bowed to Yi Chen. "I'm Jiang Lei. Greetings, Senior." "Thank you for saving our lives, Senior." With that, she was about to kneel. Chapter 1184. Seeing that Yi Chen's expression did not look like he was faking it, Jiang Lei bowed and let it go. "You can tell." The Patriarch of Hell looked at him in surprise. Yi Chen shook his head and said, not knowing whether to laugh or cry, "Before I came, I heard that you're enjoying yourself in a country of women. You're having fun with Her Majesty every night. You're so happy that you forget about home." The words "having fun every night" made Jiang Lei's pretty face burn. "I'm no longer the Empress of a Huang kingdom. You know me best, kid." The Patriarch of Hell grinned and said, "I didn't cry in vain when I heard that you were beaten to death." Yi Chen smiled warmly. Although he had not known the patriarch for long, they trusted each other completely. He could not help but take another look at Jiang Lei and nodded to himself. He had to admit that Jiang Lei was extremely beautiful both in appearance and temperament. It was no wonder that the patriarch liked her. Thinking to this point, he waved his sleeve, and several bottles of medicinal pills fell into Jiang Lei and the patriarch's hands. Take them to recover from your injuries and detoxify. I won't stand on ceremony with you. The patriarch of hell chuckled. He sat cross-legged and consumed it after receiving it. He healed his injuries in front of Yi Chen. After the poison in Jiang Lei's body was removed and her cultivation base recovered, the elders looked at each other and knelt before her. Your Majesty, we beg you to continue being the Empress. However, Jiang Lei shook her head and said, Elders, I know that I've violated the ancestral teachings. I'm no longer fit to be the Empress. If your Majesty doesn't agree, we'll kill ourselves in front of you. The elders knelt and refused to get up. Their expressions were extremely firm. This time they had really seen through it. If Jiang Lei had not risked her life to protect them earlier, they would have died long ago. Moreover, they could tell that the Patriarch of Hell knew an emperor's throne powerhouse like Yi Chen. If they were to befriend him, it would only benefit a Huang kingdom. Seeing that Jiang Lei still wanted to refuse, the Patriarch of Hell curled his lips and said, Since they're threatening to kill themselves, you can continue being the Empress. Jiang Lei nodded and said, Elders, our top priority now is to repel the enemy forces outside the city. As soon as she finished speaking, a female official rushed in from outside with an incomparably interesting expression on her face. Seeing who it was, Jiang Lei and the other elders' hearts sank. What's wrong? Is the enemy attacking the city? This time, the Dali dynasty has sent out millions of soldiers. With the addition of the disciples of the Saint Devil sect, the total number of soldiers is over 2 million. If they attack the city, the female officer beamed with joy and said, Your Majesty, elders, good news, great news, the enemy has been defeated. Yi Chen could not help but nod in satisfaction after she told him everything that happened. It turned out that Xiao He had brought his black dragon guards and over 10 martial sages of the Daluo dynasty to the eastern wilderness. Seeing that the enemy had surrounded the city, he had surrounded it from the back without saying anything. Together with the army of the Ahuang kingdom, they had annihilated the enemy. Xiao He's black dragon guards numbered more than 5,000, and they were all demonic beasts that had cultivated successfully. The lowest cultivation base was at the pseudo-emperor stage, so they were the most suitable to deal with a group of ordinary people. Speak of the devil. Xiao He, dressed in black armor, strode into the palace with a murderous aura. The enemy forces outside the city have been defeated. His monstrous murderous aura caused the expressions of Jiang Lei and the rest to change. Well done. Yi Chen nodded while smiling. Reed the Patriarch of Hell looked at him carefully and suddenly said, Your second brother? Xiao He's expression froze and he was unwilling to talk to him. If Yi Chen was the person he feared the most, then the Patriarch was the second most. He would never forget the experience of being tricked by the Patriarch to lick the electric socket with his tongue before he could transform. Second brother, it's really second brother. The Patriarch of Hell walked over and circled around him. In the end, he clicked his tongue in wonder. You've changed too much, kid. I almost didn't recognize you. In less than half a day, the entire Ahuang kingdom went from despair to excitement with Yi Chen's arrival. Therefore, Yi Chen's reputation in Ahuang kingdom soared. At that moment, countless women fell in love with Yi Chen. After this incident, the few elders discussed and decided to abolish the ancestral rule that Ahuang kingdom was not allowed to accept men. In other words, from today onwards, the women of Ahuang kingdom could communicate with men from the outside world. Once this change was announced, the entire kingdom was shaken. Even the entire eastern wilderness was shaken. As night fell, in the guest room of Ahuang kingdom, Yi Chen chased away the dozen or so beautiful women that Jiang Lei had specially arranged for him. He closed the door and sat down to look at Xiao He and the Patriarch of Hell before him. Tsk, fellow Yi, the dozen or so women that Jiang Lei arranged for you are all elites of a Huang kingdom. Moreover, they're all virgins. There are even a few pairs of twins among them. You actually don't like them. The Patriarch of Hell shook his head and said, It's not that I want to criticize you, but you're too pure and have few desires. We cultivators are already going against the heavens. Why do we have to abandon our emotions and desires? Immortal cultivation, immortal cultivation. In the Patriarch's opinion, it's not a tiresome cultivation. We're just cultivating to do whatever we want. He pointed at Yi Chen, Look at me. I used to have a harem of 3,000, but they didn't mind at all. They even loved me to death. The corner of Yi Chen's lips twitched slightly. He really could not refute his scumbag theory. The Patriarch of Hell could not help but look at Xiao He. Second brother, don't be like fellow Yi. Tell me, which woman do you like? I'll arrange a few for you. Xiao He looked at him with disdain. There are so many beautiful women in this world. In a Huang kingdom alone, there are tens of millions of single women. Even if you sleep with one every day, you'll sleep for a decade. What's the difference between you and a pig? Are you trying to go to heaven? The Patriarch of Hell was furious. Enough. Yi Chen interrupted their argument and said with a frown, It's time to discuss what we're going to do next. The two of them stopped on the spot. Yi Chen nodded in satisfaction and glanced at the Patriarch. What do you plan to do next, Patriarch? I don't have any plans. The Patriarch of Hell said, You know what kind of person I am. I just want to stay in this gentle place. However, I heard that the founding empress of a Huang kingdom was once an emperor's throne powerhouse who was suspected to be on the soul formation stage. She even left behind a secret treasure. He said seriously, What you mean is that I plan to stay for the time being and find this secret treasure. I want to see if there's a chance for you to step into the soul formation stage. Just when Yi Chen was about to speak, he heard him say again, The Patriarch is currently only at the intermediate stage, nascent soul stage. Fellow Yi, your enemies are getting stronger and stronger. I won't be able to help you much even if I follow you now. If you like Evil Dad in the City, please collect. Evil Dad in the City. Chapter 1185. So, you and second brother should leave first. The Patriarch said in one breath, If you know the whereabouts of your wife and parents, just send someone to a Huang kingdom to inform me. I'll accompany you to conquer the entire ancient, desolate realm. Yi Chen nodded slightly. In reality, the Patriarch was right. The Patriarch would not be of much help if he followed him now. It was better to give him some time to increase his cultivation. Thinking to this point, he narrowed his eyes and said, Sure. I also want to tell the two of you something. It's about my daughter, Yuhan, and the rest. You found out about it from Shang Wudao's soul search? The Patriarch of Hell was not surprised at all. Yi Chen nodded, That's right. Through the soul search, I found out that my daughter and Mu Kaiwei were taken away by an envoy from the Jade Lake Sacred Land. Jade Lake Sacred Land? The Patriarch of Hell was confused. He was in the eastern wilderness and knew almost nothing about Zhongzhou. On the other hand, Xiao Hei's eyes narrowed as he said, Master, according to what I know, the Jade Lake Sacred Land is located in the northern region of Zhongzhou. It's a supreme sect in the ancient, desolate realm. It's said that they originated from the Queen Mother of the West, and most of their disciples are women. In other words, everyone in the Jade Lake Sacred Land is female? The Patriarch of Hell's eyes lit up. That's right. Xiao Hei nodded and said, Rumor has it that the Jade Lake Sacred Land has an Emperor's Throne powerhouse and countless martial saint elders. Whether it's their background or status, they're not weaker than the Great Yin Imperial Dynasty. An Emperor's Throne powerhouse. The Patriarch of Hell was extremely disappointed. He clicked his tongue in fear. Fellow Yi, if you want to go to the Jade Lake Sacred Land to pick up Meng Meng, you have to be careful. The forces in the ancient desolate realm are very complicated. What about the radiant Saint Hall? Yi Chen asked again. He learned from Shang Wudao's mind that Mu Kaiwei and Meng Meng had gone to the Jade Lake Sacred Land. As for Jur, she was taken away by the radiant Saint Hall's envoy. Xiao He shook his head. I'm not sure about that. Yi Chen's eyes flickered nonstop as he said with a sneer, Meng Meng is my daughter. As her father, it's only right for me to take her away. It's fine if they're reasonable, but if they're unreasonable, I don't mind destroying the Jade Lake Holy Land. Xiao Hei's eyes flashed fiercely. Master, what's the situation with Madame and the rest now? This is the second thing I want to say. Yi Chen squinted slightly. I suspect that the Great Yin dynasty knows where Yuhan and my parents are. After searching Shang Wudao's soul, he learned that after the ghost ship sailed into the Tianfeng Sea area, many forces in the Central Plains sent out experts to besiege the crazy Taoist. Among them, a 9-revolution martial saint and even an emperor's throne powerhouse were mobilized. In the end, the crazy Taoist was defeated. Everyone on the ghost ship was captured, including Su Yuhan, his parents, and the little girl, Qianqian. However, Shang Wudao had no memory of the details of how they were captured. He had never been present at the time, or perhaps he was not qualified to be on the same stage as those big shots. The only thing he knew was that Su Yuhan, Yi Chen's parents, the crazy Taoist, and Qianqian were taken away by the three forces. Among them, Yi Chen's parents seemed to have been taken away by the Great Yin Imperial Dynasty, the crazy Taoist and Qianqian were taken away by a second force, and Su Yuhan was taken away by a third force alone. However, Shang Wudao had no recollection of the information about the second and third forces. The Great Yin Imperial Dynasty? The Patriarch of Hell's eyes focused, and he said in a deep voice, Fellow Yi, according to what you said, it seems like the Great Yin Imperial Dynasty is the only breakthrough point. Enemies are bound to meet on a narrow road. Xiao He smirked coldly. Master, it was the Great Yin Imperial Emperor Xian Ku who ambushed you earlier. Now, they're related to the whereabouts of Master and Madame He. It seems like we're definitely going to fight the Great Yin Imperial Dynasty. Yi Chen said calmly. Therefore, my current idea is to go to the Jade Lake Sacred Land to retrieve my daughter first. Then, I'll settle the old and new grudges with the Great Yin Imperial Dynasty. Whether it's the Great Yin Imperial Dynasty or the Jade Lake Sacred Land, they both have Emperor's throne powerhouses. The Patriarch of Hell hesitated and said, Fellow Yi, you have to be careful. After all, you're the only one who has stepped into the soul formation stage. It's very likely that you'll be attacked from both sides. If Ying is willing to join forces with Master, it might not be so troublesome. Xiao He said, After all, Ying is also an Emperor's throne powerhouse. Moreover, he has formed an alliance with many great sects and knows other Emperor's throne powerhouses. At this point, he seemed to have thought of something and added, There's also Wushuang. There's also an Emperor's throne powerhouse behind him, the Master of the Sword Hut. If we can find Wushuang, there's also an Emperor's throne powerhouse behind Yi Wushuang? The Patriarch of Hell was surprised. Xiao He immediately told him everything he knew about Yi Wushuang. The Patriarch of Hell could not help but say, If it's really as you said, and the Sword Hut is elusive, then it'll be very difficult to find Yi Wushuang. Not necessarily. Yi Chen smiled lightly. Indeed, we don't know where Wushuang is, but we can let him know where we are. Xiao He was stunned at first, then he came to a realization and said, Master, are you saying that we should get Yi Wushuang to look for us? That's right. Yi Chen nodded lightly and said, Of course, things haven't reached that stage yet. Whether it's the Emperor's throne powerhouse from the Jade Lake Sacred Land or the Great Yin's Emperor Xian Ku, I'm not afraid at all. He was not bragging at all. Once he stepped into the God transformation stage, he would have many techniques that he could use. He would not be like before. All right, let's do as you say. The Patriarch of Hell finally finalized the plan. fellow Yi, go and pick up Meng Meng. I'll continue to stay in a Huang kingdom. Once I break through, I'll look for you guys immediately. Yi Chen nodded lightly. The great Yin imperial dynasty was related to his parents' whereabouts. He had a feeling that the great Yin imperial dynasty would be the best breakthrough point. Perhaps he could even find out Su Yuhan's whereabouts. The night passed uneventfully. At dawn the next day, Yi Chen returned to the Tianfeng Sea area with Xiao He. 10,000 meters in the sky, Yi Chen headed straight for the Great Li dynasty with Xiao He. When they passed by the King Mu fort, Xiao He said, "Master, the King Mu fort is below us. Should we go down and take a look?" Before Yi Chen went to Eastern Wilderness, he forcefully tore open a spatial rift and arrived there. Xiao He first went to the King Mu fort according to his orders before rushing to Eastern Wilderness through the Great Li dynasty's teleportation formation. There's no need. It's not that important whether we meet or not. Through his divine consciousness, he could already sense that the current situation of the King Mu fort was rather good. Since that was the case, there was naturally no need to go down and meet them. The group rushed to Zhongzhou through the Great Li dynasty's teleportation formation. Then, they parted ways with the dozen or so martial saints that Xiao He had borrowed from the Daluo dynasty. Yi Chen led Xiao He straight to the northern region of Zhongzhou. Chapter 1186. Yi Chen and Xiao He were travel-worn. In order to increase its speed, Blackie revealed its true form. It was a black flood dragon that was over 60 feet long. Coupled with its ferocious aura, it caused the expressions of many people along the way to change. Half a day later, the two of them saw the nearest city in the distance. Transforming into human form, Xiao He gazed at the city in the distance. "Master, Dusk Province is right below us." The Central Plains was so vast that it was incomparable to the Eastern Barren Territory and the Northern region. No one knew how big the Central Plains was. They only knew that mortals couldn't cover all of it in their lifetime. Just the northern region alone had 13 states. Yi Chen stood in the clouds and looked into the distance at the endless city. His eyes flickered as he said, "You said that the Jade Lake Sacred Land is in Qi State, one of the 13 states, right?" "That's right. Apart from the Qi Prefecture, the other 12 prefectures of the northern region all have teleportation portals that lead to the Qi Prefecture." Xiao He nodded. "Qi Province is still a long way from here, so there's no need for us to cross several provinces. We might as well teleport from Dusk Province to Qi Province." "That's not bad. Let's go down." Yi Chen nodded lightly. He waved his sleeve and was about to descend with the wind while carrying Xiao He. At that moment, he seemed to sense something and looked at a certain spot on the ground. Outside Dusk City, in the Blackwater River. "Am I going to die? Who would have thought that I, Hu Fei, who thought my heart was higher than the heavens and was considered a genius in the clan, would die in the hands of a woman today?" In the river, a simple and honest young man with a huge rock tied to his body was sinking into the water at an extremely fast speed. Feeling the increasing pressure in the water, to the point that his eardrums were on the verge of bursting, the young man smiled bitterly. His eyes were filled with unwillingness and hatred. Hua hua hua. His eardrums ruptured and blood flowed into the water. At this moment, a huge black shadow attacked from the water. It was like a huge black beast that blotted out the sky and covered the earth. It seemed to have been lured over by the smell of blood. Rank 7 bloodthirsty beast. Seeing this, Hu Fei fell into complete despair. "Qiu Yun, you slut! Not only did you seal my cultivation, you even sprinkled demon luring powder on me and drowned me in the river. Even if I become a ghost, I will not let you go." The shadow was getting closer and closer, and his consciousness was getting weaker and weaker. Roar! The black shadow smelled the scent of blood and approached from afar. Then, it opened its bloody mouth and swallowed the former. Its ferocious fangs were suffocating. Just as its mouth was about to swallow Hu Fei, a large hand suddenly descended from the river and directly crushed it. An endless amount of blood spread out. On the surface of the river, Hu Fei shuddered and woke up from his coma. He saw that not only was he not dead, he had regained his mobility and was standing on a cliff. Xiaohe, who was standing aside, pouted and said to Yi Chen, "Master, he's awake." Hu Fei only noticed Xiaohe and Yi Chen after hearing that. He bowed at them immediately. "Thank you for saving my life." He wasn't a stupid person. He knew very well that unless someone saved him, he would definitely die in that situation. Little Black chuckled as if he was being unreasonable. "I didn't save you. The one who saved you was my master." Hu Fei lifted his head to look at Yi Chen by instinct. He saw a white-haired young man meditating with his legs crossed. Just when he was about to speak, he saw the young man suddenly open his eyes and look at him quietly with an extremely cold gaze. At that moment, Hu Fei seemed to have been frozen. He stood still as a buzzing sound rang in his head. It was a pair of indescribable eyes. They seemed to contain the laws of heaven and earth, as if they could see through heaven and earth with a single glance. Under the gaze of this pair of eyes, Hu Fei felt as if all the blood in his body was burning. Even his soul felt an incomparably scorching sensation. Bang, bang, bang. Bang, bang, bang. Hu Fei felt like his heart could not take it anymore. Hu Fei snapped back to his senses from the nightmare after Yi Chen looked away. He was extremely exhausted and drenched all over. Hu Fei took a deep breath in. His body was shaking as he bowed to Yi Chen solemnly with a pale face. "Thank you for saving my life, Senior." "That's terrifying." He was still in shock. One had to know that he was not even 25 years old yet, but his cultivation base was already at peak martial ancestor stage. He was only one step away from entering martial saint stage. Qindu Chinese network with such talent, he would be the top among the younger generation in the clan. Those who were stronger than him were only a handful of fingers. However, he could not withstand Yi Chen's glare. Plop! In the next moment, he dropped to his knees and prostrated himself in an extremely pious manner. "Hu Fei of Dusk Provinces, Hu Clan greets Senior. This junior will never forget your kindness in saving my life. I will definitely avenge you." This kind of kneeling posture was something that only he, Hu Fei, had ever done after seeing the Hu clan's patriarch for the first time. However, to Hu Fei, Yi Chen was even more terrifying than the patriarch of the Hu family at that moment. The reason being, he had never felt such a terrifying gaze from the patriarch earlier. "Get up." Yi Chen spoke slowly with a calm gaze. "I only saved you on a whim. There's no need for you to repay me. All right, you can leave now." The reason why he saved Hu Fei was not because he wanted to meddle in other people's business, but because he felt that Hu Fei's experience was somewhat similar to his, so he could not help but save him. After all, he had also been drowned in the river. He could feel the fear of death, and he could also feel his own unwillingness from Hu Fei. Hu Fei struggled when he heard Yi Chen's order to chase him away. He seemed to be unwilling. Then, he gritted his teeth and prostrated himself on the ground again. "Senior, I'm the youngest disciple of Dusk Province's Hu family. My cultivation base is at peak martial ancestor stage. I beg you to submit to me, Senior." He said it in an extremely fanatical tone. He was almost certain that the young man before him was much more powerful than the patriarch of the Hu family. He had been harmed by a traitor in his clan. If he wanted a chance to take revenge, he would only have a chance by submitting to a powerhouse, and Yi Chen was the best choice. If the people of Dusk Province or the Hu family saw this scene, they would definitely be shocked speechless. One had to know that Hu Fei was known as one of the 4 geniuses in the Hu family. He was only one step away from becoming a martial saint at such a young age. He was also proud and unruly. Now, he actually admired someone so much. "You want to submit to me?" Yi Chen was surprised. Hu Fei immediately said respectfully, "Yes, Senior. This junior's cultivation base is low, and I know that I'm not qualified to submit to you. However, this junior is sincere. This junior has some status in the Hu family. If senior has any requests, this junior will definitely do his best. Yi Chen shook his head lightly. Xiao He grinned and revealed a murderous aura. My master asked you to leave. Don't you understand? Hu Fei's heart sank. Then, he slapped his glabella and forcefully extracted his soul power. He offered it respectfully. Senior, please give this junior a chance. This junior swears that I will never betray you. In order to prove my sincerity, this junior is willing to offer the power of my soul. This junior grew up in Dusk Province since I was young. Hu Fei said subconsciously. Very good. Yi Chen took his soul power and swallowed it. He fused it into his own soul, which meant that he could control his life and death. Seeing that, Hu Fei did not regret it at all. Instead, he revealed an incomparable fervor and excitement. Thank you for giving me this chance, my lord. Yi Chen went straight to the point. Do you know about the Jade Lake Sacred Land? The Jade Lake Sacred Land? Hu Fei was stunned at first, then he said, My lord, the Jade Lake Sacred Land is one of the supreme sects in the northern region. It's located in Qi Province, one of the 13 states in the northern region. He slowly told Yi Chen everything he knew and added, My lord, are you going to the Jade Lake Convention? Jade Lake Convention? Yi Chen and Xiao He looked at each other. It was the first time they had heard of this. As if sensing their doubts, Hu Fei immediately said, My lord, the Jade Lake Convention is organized by the Jade Lake Sacred Land. It's held every 100 years, and a new saintess will be appointed every time. The Jade Lake Convention will be held in 3 days. Through his explanation, Yi Chen came to a realization. It turned out that the Jade Lake Sacred Land had a saint and a saintess. In the Jade Lake Sacred Land, their status was second only to the Holy Lord. Even the elders did not dare to order them. According to the rules of the Jade Lake Sacred Land, the saint and saintess would be changed every 100 years. When they changed, the Jade Lake Convention would be held, and everyone in the world would be invited to witness it. Hu Fei seemed to have thought of something and said, By the way, my lord, I heard that the Jade Lake Sacred Land brought back a woman from the outside world. Chapter 1187. Yi Chen's eyes lit up when he said that. Mu? Could it be Mu Kaiwei? Thinking to this point, he immediately said, Then how do we get to the Jade Lake Sacred Land from Dusk Province? Hu Fei immediately looked troubled. My lord, logically speaking, Dusk Province has a teleportation formation to Qi Province, but we need an invitation. Otherwise, we can only get to Qi Province and not the Jade Lake Sacred Land. What invitation? Yi Chen frowned. Hu Fei explained, The invitation is distributed by the Jade Lake Sacred Land to all the forces. Only those with the invitation can participate in the Jade Lake meeting. My Hu family is also invited. Yi Chen was speechless when he heard that. My lord, if you don't have an invitation, this subordinate has another way. Hu Fei said sensibly, There will be an alchemy conference in Dusk Province today. It's organized by the Alchemy Guild. If you get first place in the alchemy competition, you'll get an invitation. That's great. Yi Chen nodded lightly and said, Since that's the case, I'll go take a look at this so-called alchemy conference. It was not that he had not considered killing his way into the Jade Lake Sacred Land in the most forceful manner and forcing them to hand over his daughter. However, when he thought about how his daughter was in the other party's hands, no matter what the other party's motive was, if he went in this way, the relationship between the two parties would definitely be strained. The safest way was to follow the rules. At most, he would act according to the situation. Subsequently, Hu Fei took the initiative to lead Yi Chen and Yi Chen into Dusk Province. Along the way, he explained many things about Dusk Province to the two of them. According to him, there were a total of 4 major forces in Dusk Province. They were the Hu family, the Great Zhou royal family, the Mystic Master Guild, and the Alchemy Guild. Among them, It was rumored that the Hu family and the great Zhou royal family had once produced Emperor's Throne powerhouses. However, Emperor's Throne powerhouses had a limited lifespan and could not escape the cycle of reincarnation. With the fall of Emperor's Throne powerhouses, the Hu family and the great Zhou royal family gradually declined. Even so, no one in Dusk Province dared to provoke them. After all, no one knew how powerful a family that had an Emperor's Throne powerhouse was. As the name suggests, the Mystic Masters Union is a union formed by Mystic Masters, and its internal members are all Mystic Masters. However, the Mystic Masters Union's background couldn't be compared to the other two. The Mystic Masters Union was also a powerful force in the entire ancient barren world. It was just that there were many branches scattered all over the place. As for the Pill Alliance, it was an alliance formed by countless pill refining families in Dusk Province. They'd befriended many experts through their pills. Under normal circumstances, even the Mystic Master Union wouldn't dare provoke them. In less than 4 hours, Hu Fei led the two of them to a huge city, and said respectfully, "Supreme Lord, we have arrived at the location of the Dan Alliance." Yi Chen looked in the direction of the voice and saw a purple pill furnace that was 300 meters tall standing in the city. The entire city was filled with a faint pill fragrance that made one feel refreshed. "High Lord, that is the Dan Alliance." Hu Fei looked at the huge pill furnace with awe. Although this was not the first time he had come here, every time he came, he would be shocked by this building. "It's quite imposing." Yi Chen nodded lightly. He seemed to be used to it. After all, on Earth, there was a building that looked like a giant Moutai bottle at the place where Moutai was. The two of them followed Hu Fei toward the huge pill furnace building. Along the way, they saw many people who had the same goal as them. "Wow, Grandpa, that pill furnace is so big, so tall." A purple-clothed young girl followed behind a red-robed old man and looked at the Dan Alliance headquarters in shock. "Such a huge pill furnace, how many people do you need to refine pills, idiot?" The red-robed old man shook his head, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. "It's just a building, not a real pill furnace." Although he said that, his eyes were still filled with respect. To alchemists like them, the Dan Alliance was no different from a holy land. Even Yi Chen was amused by the purple-clothed girl's silly words. Seeing that, the purple-clothed girl made a face at him in embarrassment and annoyance. There were many people like the grandfather and grandson duo. Clearly, they were here to participate in the alchemy conference. When Yi Chen followed Hu Fei into the Dan Alliance, he saw that the hall was already crowded. Some of them were gathering together to catch up, while others that they did not know introduced themselves, causing everyone's expressions to change. A cry of surprise came from the crowd. "Isn't that Master Guo from Luling City? I didn't expect him to be here personally." Everyone immediately looked in the direction of the voice and noticed the red-robed old man and the purple-clothed young girl. Someone forced a smile and said, "Master Guo, you're the number 1 of the Dan Alliance competition 50 years ago. You're already a grade 7 alchemist. I didn't expect you to be unable to hold it in anymore. Everyone, please forgive me." Master Guo cupped his fists and smiled. "It's not that I can't hold it in, but my granddaughter's lifelong wish is to join the Jade Lake Holy Land. Now, she can't wait to witness the unparalleled scene of the Jade Lake Convention. My lord, this person's name is Guo Hong." In the corner, Hu Fei looked at the red-robed old man with respect and introduced. "This person won first place in the alchemy competition 50 years ago with a top-grade grade 6 medicinal pill. It seems like he has become a grade 7 alchemist now." As he spoke, he added, "The Dan Alliance's medicinal pills are divided into 9 grades. Grade 1 is the lowest, and grade 9 is the highest. Each grade is divided into 4 grades: low grade, medium grade, high grade, and top grade." "What about above grade 9? Yi Chen asked. Hu Fei took a deep breath in and said, "Medicinal pills above grade 9 are known as heavenly pills. Anyone who can refine heavenly pills can be said to be an alchemy master. Even in the Dan Alliance, there's only the Patriarch of Pill River. Just as everyone was flattering Guohong, a disdainful voice came from outside the hall. He's just a grade 7 alchemist who exhausted his potential to advance. What right does he have to be called a master? As the voice fell, the entire place instantly fell silent. The red-robed old man's expression changed slightly. The purple-clothed young girl behind him looked in the direction of the voice angrily. Under everyone's gaze, a group of people slowly walked in from outside the hall. The leader was a young man in a golden robe. The young man was extraordinarily handsome, but his brows were filled with arrogance and arrogance. It's Zhou Xinghe from the great Zhou royal family. Zhou Xinghe? Could it be the third prince of the great Zhou dynasty, who was born with a pill cloud, and was later taken in as a direct disciple by the Patriarch of Pill River? That's right, it's him. It's said that this kid was able to refine grade 2 medicinal pills at the age of 8, grade 3 medicinal pills at the age of 10, and grade 7 medicinal pills at the age of 20. At that moment the entire hall was in an uproar. It was as if bees were building a nest. It was extremely noisy. Guohong's expression changed drastically. Clearly, he had recognized the former's illustrious identity. At this moment, a bearded old man in a red robe walked out. Young master's sudden arrival at the Dan Alliance really makes this old man feel uneasy. It's Elder Go from the Dan Alliance. Someone immediately revealed the former's identity. Elder Go, I originally disdained to share the stage with these pieces of trash. Zhou Xinghe glanced at Guohong in disdain and said, however, I have a friend who also wants to participate in the Jade Lake meeting. Unfortunately, he doesn't have an invitation, so I have no choice but to make a trip. What are you saying? The purple-clothed girl behind Guohong was so angry that her face turned ashen. Zhou Xinghe sneered, then turned around and pointed at a green-clothed woman behind him. Elder Go, this is Lu Yao from the Lu family. Lu Yao greets Elder Go. The green-clothed woman called Lu Yao immediately smiled. Elder Go hurriedly returned the greeting, then looked at Zhou Xinghe with a slightly solicitous expression. Young master, if your friend needs an invitation, just tell this old man and I will give it to you. There's no need to go through so much trouble. It wasn't his fault for being so solicitous, but the latter's master was the Dan Alliance's patriarch, and it was related to his future advancement. Then there's no need. Zhou Xinghe smiled proudly. I still have to follow the rules. Since the alchemy competition has decided the ownership of the invitation, how can I overstep it? At this point, he looked at the people around him with slight disdain. Besides, how can this group of trash be a match for me in the Tao of alchemy? With that said, everyone was furious, but they didn't dare to say anything. However, most of them felt bitter in their hearts. Originally, they thought that their alchemy skills were not bad, so they tried to come and see if they could get an invitation. Unexpectedly, Guohong, the 7th-grade alchemist, appeared first, and then Zhou Xinghe, the disciple of an alchemy grandmaster. Most importantly, not only was the latter's talent astonishing, but the great Zhou royal family behind him was also the overlord of the Xianzhou province, which many people looked up to. End of this chapter. Chapter 1188. Alright, since everyone is here, let's begin the alchemy competition. Guchang Lao looked around and said with a faint smile, if anyone wants to participate in the competition, please step forward and sign up. The hall fell into silence as soon as he said that. Everyone looked at each other. Although they were tempted, no one dared to step forward. After all, Zhou Xinghe's intention was very obvious. He was determined to win first place in the competition. Aside from his shocking alchemy skills, who would dare to go against him with the great Zhou royal family behind him? When Zhou Xinghe saw this, the arrogance on his face grew even more intense. Is everyone willing to participate? Guchang Lao looked at that with a faint smile. He was happy to see it happen. Since no one is participating, the first place in the competition will go to young Master Zhou. Before he could finish, Guohong took a step forward and said in a deep voice, "I'll try." Everyone's expression changed. They secretly thought that Master Guo was indeed Master Guo. He knew that there was a tiger in the mountain, but he still went to the mountain. Zhou Xinghe's expression turned grim. Subsequently, he scoffed and said, "Old thing, since you insist on humiliating yourself, let's start with the two of us. I'll let you know the difference between us. Don't make it sound so bad." The purple-clothed girl said indignantly, "The competition hasn't even started, how do you know you'll win?" Guohong looked calm. "Let's begin." Elder Gu said, "Since only Master Guo and young Master Zhou are participating, I'll announce, wait." At this moment, an indifferent voice sounded from a corner. Everyone held their breaths and looked over. They saw a young man in green walking out of the crowd slowly. "Is this brat here to participate in the alchemy competition too?" "He's so young. He's a grade 2 alchemist at most. How does he have the confidence to compete with Master Guo and young Master Zhou? A newborn calf is really fearless." The entire hall was in an uproar when they saw how young Yi Chen was. The young man was Yi Chen. Guohong was slightly shocked. Subsequently, he shook his head. Clearly, he had the same thought as everyone else. On the other hand, the young lady in purple behind him gave Yi Chen a thumbs up. Elder Gu frowned. "Who are you?" Yi Chen said calmly, "Why do you care who I am? There's no rule that I can't participate in the alchemy competition this time." Elder Gu was enraged. Just as he was about to reprimand Elder Gu, Hu Fei stepped forward and sneered, "Elder Gu, I brought the High Lord here. Is there a problem?" As Hu Fei stepped forward, everyone's spirits were lifted. Even Zhou Xinghe, who was initially disinterested, was no exception. "So it's young Master Hu from the Hu clan." Elder Gu was taken aback at first, then he said with great surprise, "Since this young man was invited by young Master Hu, there is naturally no problem." Hu Fei responded with a sneer. On the other hand, Zhou Xinghe said in a mocking tone, "Hu Fei, you actually addressed a brat as High Lord? Aren't you afraid of losing face for your Hu clan?" "You don't have to worry about that." Hu Fei smiled proudly and said with a fanatical expression, "The High Lord's ability is not something you can imagine. I advise you to admit defeat as soon as possible so that you don't embarrass yourself, you." Zhou Xinghe flew into a rage. "If that's the case, let's begin." Elder Gu interrupted the duo's argument and said, "Please show us your alchemy certificate." Guohong and Zhou Xinghe nodded at the same time. Then, they took out a piece of metal that looked like bronze. Their names were engraved on the front, while the words Alchemy Guild were engraved on the back. Seeing that Yi Chen did not move, Elder Gu could not help but say, "Young man, please show us your alchemy certificate." "What alchemy certificate?" Yi Chen frowned. There was an uproar as soon as that was said. "Oh my God, I thought this brat might have some ability when I saw how confident he was at first. I didn't expect him to not even have an alchemy certificate. How can he be called an alchemist without an alchemy certificate? I think this brat is here to cause trouble." Even Hu Fei was a little surprised. "Ha ha ha, a brat who doesn't even have an alchemy certificate dares to participate in the competition?" Zhou Xinghe laughed out loud as if he had heard something funny. "Hu Fei, is this the omnipotent High Lord that you mentioned? It's good to have a brain. I hope you have one too." Elder Gu looked at Yi Chen with a grim expression. "Young man, the so-called alchemy certificate is a certificate that an ordinary person can use to refine pills at the Alchemy Guild." He squinted as he spoke to this point. "You're here to participate in the competition without even an alchemy certificate. I can take it that you're here to cause trouble." Yi Chen smiled calmly as everyone watched. "Can't I just take the test now?" The place fell into dead silence as soon as that was said. Everyone looked at Yi Chen as if they were looking at an idiot. "If you don't even have an alchemy certificate, it means that you don't know alchemy. Even if you pass the test, you're just a grade 1 alchemist at most." "You're just a grade 1 alchemist." You're no different from an apprentice. How dare you participate in the competition? No matter how hard Elder Gu tried to suppress his temper, he could not help but be enraged at that moment. Elder Gu, since he's so confident, you can arrange for him to take the test. Zhou Xing has said wryly, I'm curious how a piece of trash who doesn't know alchemy can defeat me. Alright. Elder Gu suppressed his anger and waved his hand. Immediately, a beautiful lady brought Yi Chen to another hall in the Alchemy Guild. Zhou Xinghe looked at Hu Fei and scoffed, Hu Fei, I believe that you'll definitely be famous when the news of what happened today reaches your Hu family. You don't have to worry about that. Hu Fei said with a calm expression, if my lord is the same as you guys, why would he be my lord? From the beginning until the end, he was extremely passionate about Yi Chen. He did not feel disappointed at all. Then I'll wait and see. Zhou Xinghe smirked in a peculiar manner. He then looked at Guohong and said, Old man, among everyone here, only you're qualified to fight me. Why don't we begin now? Sure. Guohong nodded. Elder Gu led the duo to the alchemy room immediately. The rest in the hall followed immediately. Nobody cared if Yi Chen could pass the Alchemy Guild assessment or not. Even if he passed, to them, he was no different from a clown. Only Hu Fei and Xiao He were still waiting where they were. In the Alchemy Guild's Alchemy Guild Assessment Hall. After the lady with the medal on her chest led Yi Chen in, she said calmly, There are the ingredients for a grade 1 medicinal pill before you. You may begin now. After saying that, he sat down and picked up the spirit fruit beside him. He started eating it expressionlessly. Empty nether herb, a low-grade spirit herb. It's one of the supplementary ingredients for refining the spirit-gathering pill. I didn't expect to see it here. Bloodthirsty flower, a low-grade spirit herb. It's one of the supplementary ingredients for refining the spirit-gathering pill. 100 spirit fruit, a low-grade spirit herb. Yi Chen looked over and saw that the huge wooden shelf was wrapped in a formation. Meanwhile, there were spirit herbs inside the formation's light screen. The only thing that disappointed him was that the spirit herbs before him were all low-grade spirit herbs. They were useless to him. The Alchemy Guild is one of the 4 overlords of Dusk Province after all. They shouldn't be so poor. It seems like the good stuff isn't here. Yi Chen figured it out in a blink of an eye. Subsequently, he walked forward slowly and took out many spirit herbs. 5 Qian of Qi amalgamation herb, 1 vitality nourishing fruit, 2 ice spirit flowers, and 1 continuous root. It's perfect for refining the spirit gathering pill. After Yi Chen collected all the ingredients, he slapped the pill furnace in front of him. The ground fire was born, and all the ingredients were poured into the pill furnace. After some time, just as the examinee was about to fall asleep, she suddenly smelled a strange medicinal fragrance. As soon as the medicinal fragrance entered her nose, she immediately felt that the sealed acupoints in her body were showing signs of loosening. She turned around subconsciously and saw a medicinal pill that was enshrouded in colorful light. The medicinal pill floated in the air like a small sun. It was extremely dazzling. The pill produces a phenomenon, and the fragrance lingers. The examinee's eyes widened as her body trembled. She said while trembling, Heavenly pill. This is a heavenly pill. At the same time, in the alchemy room, Guohong and Zhou Xinghe were concentrating on refining pills, while the spectators held their breaths as they watched this scene unfold before them. No one dared to make a sound because once a alchemist's pill refinement was interrupted, it was equivalent to forming a life-and-death feud. Elder Gu was also watching with a nervous expression on his face. At that moment, a stuttering voice came from outside. Elder Gu, be bad news, Elder Gu frowned. In the next moment, the examinee from before rushed in a panic. She pointed at Yi Chen who was behind her and said, Elder Gu. Elder Gu was shocked at first when he saw the alchemist's certificate in Yi Chen's hand. Then, he said, All right, I know he passed the assessment and became a Tier 1 alchemist. Get lost. And no, The examinee opened her mouth. Get lost. Elder Gu swept his sleeve and sent the examinee flying. He then said to Yi Chen, don't think that you can be complacent just because you've become a Tier 1 alchemist. As he said that, he could not help but look at Guohong and Zhou Xinghe, who were refining medicinal pills. If I were you, I'd open my eyes wide and take a good look at these two seniors' pill refinement techniques. Even if you learn 1/10,000th of it, it'll be enough for you to benefit for the rest of your life. P.S. Sorry for the long wait. Although it's only 3 chapters, it's equivalent to 4 chapters. Usually, 1 chapter is 2,000 words, and 4 chapters are 8,000 words. However, the 3 chapters today are 7,800 words. End of chapter. Chapter 1189. Yi Chen looked at Guohong and Zhou Xinghe, who were refining pills after hearing what Elder Gu said. He chuckled softly and said, should I call them seniors? After Mad Southern Yi stepped into the cultivation world, his aptitude was initially mediocre. However, he still managed to cultivate all the way from the cruel cultivation world to the immortal world. He even became an immortal and founded a great immortal kingdom. This was all because of his alchemy skills. In just 3,000 years, he had refined countless medicinal pills with the help of the immortal drift bottle. No one knew how high his attainments in alchemy were. Now, Elder Gu actually said that Guohong and Zhou Xinghe, the 2 so-called masters and geniuses, were actually his seniors. It was a little ridiculous. Seeing that he was actually laughing, Elder Gu scoffed. I meant well. It's fine if you don't believe me. They're starting to refine the medicinal herbs. At that moment, someone reminded softly. Under everyone's watchful eyes, Guohong pinched a seal, and 8 Dharma arrays immediately condensed in the void. 8 beams of flames of different temperatures surged out of the 8 formations and poured into the 8 apertures of the pill furnace. There were 3 grade 7 medicinal herbs in front of him. As expected of Master Guo, he's able to form formations out of thin air so easily and skillfully. Someone could not help but exclaim. The purple-clothed girl clenched her fists tightly as she watched the scene nervously. She secretly cheered for her grandfather. Subsequently, Guohong controlled the 8 flames with one hand to prevent them from being extinguished. He used his other hand to throw all the medicinal herbs that had been categorized into the pill furnace and focused on extracting the medicinal herbs. The process of alchemy was generally fire control, extraction, smelting, pill condensation, pill cultivation. Controlling the fire was especially important because different medicinal herbs required different temperatures. Some medicinal herbs would lose their medicinal properties if their temperature was too high, while some medicinal pills would consume a lot of energy if their temperature was too low. Extraction was to refine the required medicinal properties one by one from the medicinal herbs. Then, it would turn into medicinal liquid and be refined into powder by the alchemy fire. Then, it would turn into a pill using a fixed method. The last step was to refine the pill. Every step was extremely strict. It required precise calculations and multitasking. Any mistake would result in failure on the verge of success. It's just a small trick. Zhou Xinghe sneered upon seeing this, before forming a finger seal. 13 formations immediately appeared in the air, before 13 flames gushed into the cauldron. 13 arrays? Young Lord Zhou can actually form 13 Dharma arrays at once? He actually has 5 more than Master Guo. Rumor has it that the leader of the Alchemy Guild, Patriarch Danhe, created a technique to control fire, which also consists of 13 arrays. Could it be that young Master Zhou received all of Patriarch Danhe's teachings? Many people secretly gasped at the sight of this. Clearly, they were stunned by Zhou Xinghe's control over fire. Even Elder Ji's eyes flickered with envy. It's the ancestor's imperial spirit technique. The ancestor used this technique to become an alchemy grandmaster. Following that, The crowd held their breaths as they stared fixedly at the process of Guohong and Zhou Xinghe refining the pills, not daring to make the slightest noise. On the other hand, Yi Chen was disinterested. He secretly shook his head from time to time. This Guohong actually used the stupidest method of smelting the medicinal liquid with pure fire. Little did he know that this would cause a lot of medicinal properties to be lost. And this Zhou Xinghe, he clearly has 13 Dharma arrays, but he reversed the order and separated 5 of them. It's no different from taking off his pants to fart. The purple-clothed girl could not help but whisper when she saw him shaking his head, "Little brother, it's okay if you don't understand. At most, I'll get Grandpa to guide you after this." Yi Chen smiled. He thought to himself that this little girl was quite kind, so he reminded her kindly, "Your grandpa is going to lose." The purple-clothed girl was stunned when she heard that. Why? Although Yi Chen's voice was neither loud nor soft, the people around him still heard it. At that moment, many people glared at him. A grade 5 alchemist present sneered, "A brat who just obtained a grade 1 alchemist certificate dares to boast shamelessly? Bad guy, I'm ignoring you." The purple-clothed girl turned her head away angrily. 2018 Yi Chen smiled and did not explain. As time passed, 2 hours later, a lot of mist suddenly surged out of Zhou Xinghe's cauldron. As the mist dispersed, a rich medicinal fragrance spread. "Young Master Zhou has completed the pill." The onlookers could not help but be excited. In the next moment, a white glow bloomed from the cauldron. Subsequently, Zhou Xinghe removed the formation and slapped the cauldron lid. Whoosh! A white elixir shot out at once. Instantly, the medicinal fragrance spread, causing countless people to be intoxicated. The innate spirit-clearing barrier-breaking pill. It's a grade 7 medicinal pill, the innate spirit-clearing barrier-breaking pill. Zhou Xinghe waved his sleeve and put the medicinal pill into the bottle. After that, he got up and tossed it to Elder Gu for appraisal. A grade 7 medicinal pill, the innate spirit-clearing barrier-breaking pill. Elder Gu secretly took a deep breath in and said after a pause, "Middle grade. If a cultivator consumes this pill, it can remove mental barriers, clear the mind, and nourish the soul. It will reduce the chance of qi deviation." The crowd was in an uproar when they heard that. A middle grade 7 medicinal pill. The crowd did not expect Zhou Xinghe to be able to refine such a high-quality medicinal pill at such a young age. Rumble, at the same time, Guohong's cauldron shone brightly as well. Then, a white glow fell into the bottle. Elder Gu took it and appraised it. A grade 7 medicinal pill, the Lunar Vitality Enhancement Pill. It has the effect of strengthening one's foundation and nourishing the 8 meridians. For a moment, the crowd was shocked. They stared at Elder Gu with their eyes wide open, trying to figure out which of the 2 medicinal pills was better. The most nervous person was the purple-clad girl. Under everyone's gaze, Elder Gu continued, "However, this pill has a flaw. It only has 3/4 of the medicinal effect. Therefore, it is appraised as a low-grade grade 7 medicinal pill." He paused for a moment before he slowly said, "Therefore, young Master Zhou wins this alchemy battle." As soon as he finished speaking, everyone present looked at Zhou Xinghe, their gazes filled with envy and respect. Guohong could not help but look disappointed. His brows were filled with self-blame. The purple-clad girl behind him was like a defeated rooster, her head lowered. Elder Gu looked at Guohong. "Master Gu, do you have any objections to my judgment?" "No." Guohong smiled bitterly and bowed to Zhou Xinghe. "Young Master Zhou is able to refine a grade 7 medicinal pill at such a young age. I'm inferior to you, and I admit my inferiority." "Grandpa." The purple-clad girl could not bear it. The rest nodded one after another. Clearly, they felt that Elder Ji's analysis was reasonable and fair. After all, everyone present was proficient in medicinal pills. As the victor, Zhou Xinghe looked at Guohong with disdain. "Old thing, I told you long ago. Why did you have to humiliate yourself?" Idiot, let's go. Guohong could afford to lose. He turned around and pulled the purple-clad girl, whose eyes were bloodshot, away. Since young Master Zhou has defeated Master Guo. Elder Gu glanced at the crowd and deliberately ignored Yi Chen. He said slowly, since there's no one else participating, I'll announce the winner of this alchemy competition. Wait. Before he could finish, Zhou Xinghe suddenly interrupted him. The latter pointed at Yi Chen. Chapter 1190. As soon as Zhou Xinghe said that, after a moment of dead silence, there was an uproar and laughter. Although Zhou Xinghe was speaking in all seriousness, everyone present could hear the mockery and disdain in his voice. Young Master Zhou, even Master Guo was defeated by you. How can this brat be your match? Someone could not help but laugh. That's right. A grade 5 pill refinement master looked at Yi Chen in disdain. This brat has just obtained the certificate of a grade 1 pill refinement master. At most, he's just a beginner. How can he be young Master Zhou's match? Out of everyone here, any one of them would be able to defeat this kid. At that moment the entire hall was filled with mockery. Even Elder Gu laughed. He could not help but look at Yi Chen and say, Young man, do you know the difference between you and young Master Zhou now? If you know what's good for you, apologize to young Master Zhou and… Apologize? Before he was done speaking, he heard Yi Chen say nonchalantly, How can a piece of trash who doesn't know medicine be worthy of my apology? The entire place fell into silence as soon as he said that. Everyone looked at Yi Chen as if they were looking at a lunatic. How dare he bet that young Master Zhou was trash? One must know that young Master Zhou's master was the patriarch of Elixir River. If he called him trash, wouldn't he be calling the patriarch of Elixir River too? What a sharp-tongued brat. Zhou Xinghe laughed out of anger. There was killing intent in his eyes when he looked at Yi Chen. Since you're not convinced by me, let's fight. I'll make it clear first. If you lose, you'll kill yourself. Do you dare? What if you lose? Yi Chen smiled wryly. How could I possibly lose? Zhou Xinghe subconsciously sneered and then said, If I lose to you in front of everyone, I will also commit suicide in front of everyone. Everyone can bear witness. Sure, I'll play with you. Yi Chen seemed to be mocking. As soon as he said that, the only thought in everyone's mind was that this brat was crazy. He dared to accept the bet despite knowing that he would die. Guohong, who was planning to leave with his granddaughter, could not help but glance at Yi Chen. He said while shaking his head, Young man, young Master Zhou is talented. He's not someone you can challenge. You should leave with me. Even though he did not know Yi Chen, he could not help but think of himself when he was young when he saw Yi Chen challenge Zhou Xinghe at such a young age. Considering that Yi Chen might really die on the spot if he really lost, he could not bear to take Yi Chen away. The purple-clothed girl kindly reminded him, Little big brother, come with us. No need. Yi Chen looked at Zhou Xinghe sympathetically. I only wanted the invitation. Since he wants to die, I'll fulfill his wish. What a pity, Guohong shook his head. Grandpa, the purple-robed girl tugged at the corner of his clothes tightly as a pleading look appeared on her face. Fine. Guohong sighed lightly. In the end, he still chose to stay and watch from the sidelines. He thought to himself, if this young friend loses, this old man will protect his life. All right then. Elder Gu took a good look at Zhou Xinghe and said, In this battle, both of you will refine a 7-transformation ice soul pill each. The time limit is 4 hours. There are no restrictions on the herbs, and you'll provide the pill recipe. The winner lives, and the loser dies. As soon as he was done speaking, the entire place fell silent. Many people sucked in a breath of cold air when they heard the words 7-transformation spirit pill. They looked at Yi Chen as if they were looking at a dead man. When the purple-clothed girl saw the drastic change in everyone's expression, she could not help but ask Guohong, Grandpa, what's a 7-transformation ice soul pill? The so-called 7 Transformation Soul Pill is a type of grade 7 medicinal pill. Guohong said with a terrible expression, "This pill is rare and extremely difficult to refine. The process is complicated. Although it's a grade 7 medicinal pill, even some grade 8 pill alchemists can't refine it." The purple-clothed girl's face turned pale when she heard that. She looked at Yi Chen with sympathy. Guohong sighed softly too. There were many grade 7 medicinal pills, but Elder Gu insisted on refining the 7 Transformation Ice Soul Pill. Anyone who was smart would know that he was siding with Zhou Xinghe. After all, Zhou Xinghe's master was the Alchemy Guild's master, the Patriarch of Pill River. As an alchemy master, he must have taught Zhou Xinghe the refining technique to refine the 7 Transformation Ice Soul Pill. Clearly, Yi Chen was a dead man from the beginning. Elder Gu lifted his head to look at Yi Chen. There was a gleam in his eyes. "Young man, do you have any objections?" "No." Yi Chen shook his head. "All right then, the two of you may begin." Elder Gu waved his sleeve, and 2 pill furnaces moved over immediately. Along with them were the herbs and pill recipes that he had prepared. Boom! Zhou Xinghe sat down abruptly. Then, he formed 13 formations just like before and poured 13 wisps of spiritual fire into the pill furnaces. He began to refine the pills with full focus. Someone exclaimed and pointed at Yi Chen. "Look, what's he doing?" Everyone looked over immediately and saw Yi Chen counting the ingredients in front of him at a steady pace. He was even shaking his head while holding the pill recipes. "Ha ha ha, this brat must not know where to start. He doesn't even understand the pill recipes." "That's true. He's just a grade 1 alchemy master. I'm afraid he can't even activate the pill furnaces, let alone refine the 7 Transformation Ice Soul Pill. I've lived for half my life, but this is the first time I've seen such a young man who wants to die." Strange, strange. Many people were discussing among themselves. There was disdain and sympathy in their eyes when they looked at Yi Chen, but most of them were gloating. Guohong shook his head repeatedly when he saw that. The so-called 7 Transformation Ice Soul Pill is just a grade 3 medicinal pill in the cultivation world, the Ice Replenishment Pill. I can't believe that it's considered a grade 7 medicinal pill here. Yi Chen looked at the pill recipe and could not help but shake his head. Moreover, the medicinal herbs in the recipe are messy. It's obvious that someone who doesn't understand medicinal herbs came up with it. Under everyone's gaze, he actually closed his eyes and sat cross-legged as if he had fallen asleep. This brat is really crazy. He's still thinking about cultivating at a time like this? One must know that the time limit is only 4 hours. If he continues to waste time like this, how can he refine medicinal pills? Hee, what if he knows that he's going to die, so he gave up early and chose to accept his fate? Some people scoffed while others shook their heads. The young lady in purple looked at Yi Chen with concern. She could not help but frown and say, "Grandpa, what exactly is little brother doing? I don't understand either." Guohong shook his head lightly and said with a sigh, "When I saw how confident this little friend was earlier, I might have thought that he was a master of alchemy. Now it seems like, clearly, even he was disappointed in Yi Chen." Time passed bit by bit. Everyone had completely lost interest in him. They kept their eyes on Zhou Xinghe. An hour later, Zhou Xinghe had extracted 49 types of medicinal herbs and completely liquefied the medicinal essence. Another hour passed. Zhou Xinghe condensed all the medicinal liquid essences into powder and tried to fuse them with the alchemy technique. However, everyone realized that Yi Chen was still motionless. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. An hour later, everyone was shocked to discover that the temperature in the room had dropped suddenly. Then, the ground and the walls were frozen at a speed visible to the naked eye. End of this chapter. Chapter 1191. The 7 Transformation Ice Soul Pill is almost done. Elder Gu was elated instead of shocked. As expected, when everyone looked at Zhou Xinghe's cauldron, they saw that the entire cauldron had turned into an ice ball. Endless cold and hot air were spreading out of the ice ball. Someone felt a chill run down their spine. They shuddered by instinct as if their souls were frozen. Bang! As the lid of the cauldron was lifted, a white gleam broke out of the cauldron like a white dragon and landed in a white jade bottle. It's done. Zhou Xinghe stopped cultivating and opened his eyes. Elder Gu could not wait to walk over and take a look. He had a shocked expression on his face as he said, "It's a grade 7 medicinal pill, the 7 transformation ice soul pill, a superior grade 1. There was an uproar as soon as that was said. High grade. Not only was it a grade 7 medicinal pill, but it was also a superior grade 1 among the grade 7 ones. One must know that the innate soul-clearing bottleneck-breaking pill that Zhou Xinghe refined during the battle with Guohong was only a middle-grade one. Little brother is doomed. The purple-clad girl almost lost her balance. Zhou Xinghe then looked at Yi Chen. He could not help but ask when he saw that the latter seemed to be sleeping, "What's he doing?" "Young master, he's sleeping." Elder Gu revealed a smirk at the corner of his lips. Zhou Xinghe snickered as a cold gleam filled his eyes. How can he sleep when he's about to die? Wake him up. Someone woke Yi Chen up immediately. Yi Chen stretched and looked at Zhou Xinghe disinterestedly. "Are you done?" Elder Gu said expressionlessly, "Young Master Zhou has successfully refined the 7 transformation ice soul pill within the allotted time. Moreover, it's a superior grade 7 medicinal pill." Zhou Xinghe took a step out and looked at Yi Chen with a cruel expression. "Yi, you've lost. You can kill yourself now." "Grandpa." The purple-clad girl was shocked. Guohong sighed softly when he heard that. Just when he was going to stand up for Yi Chen, he heard Yi Chen say, "The allotted time is 4 hours. It's only been 3 hours. What's the rush?" Guohong stopped walking immediately. Zhou Xinghe immediately burst into laughter, as if he had heard something funny. "Do you think you can refine the 7 revolution ice soul pill in an hour?" Everyone shook their heads. "Why not?" Yi Chen stood up slowly and looked straight at him. He enunciated word by word, "It's just a medicinal pill, yet you took 3 hours to refine it. I have to say that you're really trash." "You." Zhou Xinghe was furious. He had been surrounded by pill clouds when he was born, and had been taken in as Patriarch Pillriver's last disciple. Wherever he went, people would flatter him. When had anyone ever called him trash? Yi Chen's gaze was like 2 heavenly swords as he scanned the crowd. "I thought the alchemists of Dusk Province were very skilled. I didn't expect to see you now. I'm really disappointed." Before everyone could react, he took a step forward. "Today, I'll let all of you know what true alchemy methods are." The next moment, he waved his sleeve. "Medicine!" Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. At that moment, the countless medicinal ingredients that were placed at the side all gathered towards him. Every single one of them was a medicinal ingredient needed to refine the 7-turn ice soul pill. "Fire!" Yi Chen waved his hand and formed a formation. Everyone realized that all of the underground spiritual fire in the pill refinement room turned into a 7-colored fire dragon and shot out. Roar! The 7-colored fire dragon opened its mouth and swallowed all of the medicinal ingredients. The 7-colored flames quickly extracted all of the medicinal ingredient. Extraction, smelting, pill formation. This series of changes was completed in the blink of an eye. When everyone reacted, they saw a white light floating in the air. As the white light changed, it was as if there was an ice phoenix flapping its wings and crying inside. In an instant, endless pill fragrance filled the entire pill refinement room, then covered the entire Alchemy Alliance, and even spread to the entire Dusk Province. The fragrance spread for hundreds of kilometers. Everyone watched this scene in a daze. When they saw that the pill had turned into the shape of a phoenix, the entire pill refinement room was instantly filled with shock. Phenomenon! This is a phenomenon! Legend has it that above grade 9 medicinal pills are heavenly pills, and every time a heavenly pill is refined, there will be a phenomenon. Could this be this? Before everyone could react, they heard a loud bang. Everyone subconsciously raised their heads and looked through the courtyard. What they saw was an unforgettable scene. Dark clouds were dense, and thunderclouds covered the sky. Boom, following a series of loud noises, countless bolts of lightning descended from the sky like ferocious arms, heading straight for the medicinal pill before Yi Chen. Dan Tribulation, this is the legendary Dan Tribulation. Someone cried out in shock, Heaven Pill, this must be a Heaven Pill. Only the birth of a Heaven Pill can trigger a Pill Tribulation. Oh no, the Pill Tribulation is coming for us. Someone cried out in surprise. Just when everyone was about to dodge, they saw Yi Chen pointing at the sky and shouting like thunder, Did I ask you to come? Scatter! Boom! In an instant, the pill lightning disappeared and the thunderclouds dispersed. Everyone widened their eyes and looked at Yi Chen in shock as if they had seen a ghost. The initially confident Zhou Xinghe was instantly dumbfounded. Elder Gu was petrified, not moving an inch. Guohong's mind went blank. The purple-clothed girl covered her mouth with her hand and was stunned on the spot. At this moment, the entire place was deathly silent. Under everyone's gaze, Yi Chen took off the medicinal pill and looked at Zhou Xinghe calmly. You need to use all your strength to refine a medicinal pill. It can take up to 4 hours, but pill creation with a thought. Boom! His words were like rumbling thunder that resounded in everyone's minds, including Zhou Xinghe and Elder Gu. Ugh! Zhou Xinghe spat a mouthful of blood, his eyes filled with disbelief. Impossible, this is impossible. Yi Chen's series of methods had completely shocked him. Illusion, it must be an illusion. He muttered to himself like he had gone mad. Pill creation with a thought. Even his master, the patriarch of Pill River, could not do that. Everyone was dead silent, as if they had yet to digest the shocking scene in their minds. They felt like they were in a dream. Illusion. Yi Chen chuckled softly. With a flick of his finger, he shot the medicinal pill in his hand at Elder Gu. Then, I'll have to ask you, a master alchemist, to appraise it for me. Elder Ji's hand trembled, and he almost dropped the medicinal pill. He stared at it with trembling eyes and was shocked. Heavenly pill, this is a heavenly pill. Although he had never seen the legendary heavenly pill, he could tell from the records in the books that the medicinal pill before him was definitely a heavenly pill. Meanwhile, Yi Chen's identity was on the verge of being revealed. A master alchemist. Elder Gu, save me, save me! Zhou Xinghe lost his image and roared crazily. He knew that he had lost, and the outcome of failure was death. End of this chapter. Chapter 1192. But he didn't want to die. If it was before, perhaps there would be people who would flatter him, but at this moment, no one dared to speak, because the truth was right before their eyes. Elder Gu suppressed the shock within him. Then, he looked at Yi Chen and said while clenching his teeth, This isn't an ice soul pill. I've never seen an ice soul pill like this. You've lost. As he said these words, his heart was beating wildly. He knew what his words meant. It meant that he would offend an alchemy grandmaster. However, between the alchemy grandmaster and Zhou Xinghe, he still chose Zhou Xinghe. It was because Zhou Xinghe was the last disciple of his Dan Alliance's patriarch. Not only that, Zhou Xinghe was also the third prince of one of the 4 hegemons of Dusk Province. If Zhou Xinghe died, he didn't dare to imagine how Patriarch Danhe would treat him. The great Zhou royal family wouldn't let him go. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone's expressions changed. Clearly, they did not expect Elder Gu to be so shameless. Guohong took a step forward and could not help but say, Elder Gu, as one of the elders of the Alchemy Alliance, you should. Guo, shut up. Elder Gu looked at him with murderous intent. Guohong's lips moved slightly, but he didn't dare to speak again in the end. Even he was like this, let alone the others. Ha ha ha. When Zhou Xinghe heard this, he immediately laughed complacently. Yi, you've lost. However, seeing that you have some talent, I don't want your life. Graham. He still had some brains. He knew that a young alchemy master like Yi Chen must have a shocking background. If he forced Yi Chen into a corner, he would not be able to get away with it. Elder Gu forcefully announced the result. This old man hereby announces that the first place of this competition is young Master Zhou Xinghe. Are you sure you can represent the Dan Alliance? Yi Chen's expression gradually turned cold. Initially, he planned to reason with the other party and take the invitation to the Jade Lake meeting. He did not expect to encounter such a shameless person. Elder Gu said stubbornly, as one of the 10 great elders of the Alchemy Guild, my words can represent the Alchemy Guild unless the Patriarch has special instructions. Good, very good. Yi Chen nodded slowly. His expression returned to normal. Within 3 days, I want your Alchemy Guild's Patriarch to kneel and apologize to me personally. Otherwise, I'll slaughter the Alchemy Guild. Let's go. With that, he turned around and left with Hu Fei and Blackie in front of everyone. Everyone silently watched the 3 of them leave. Their expressions were extremely complicated, and no one dared to make a sound. What a great Dan alliance! Guohong suddenly sneered and looked at Elder Gu with a mocking expression. Before this, we alchemists regarded the Alchemy Guild as a holy land, thinking that the people who concoct pills are pure in heart and are not the same as the outside world. I never thought that they would be so filthy. Since that's the case, this old man disdains to stay in this filthy place with you all. Saying that, he took off the 7th grade alchemist certificate in his hand and threw it heavily on the ground. From today onwards, I, Guohong, will withdraw from the Dan Alliance and will no longer be an alchemist of the Dan Alliance. As soon as he finished speaking, he left with large strides along with the purple-clothed girl. As he left, some people looked at each other hesitantly. A black-costume old man took off his alchemist certificate. I, Chun Nu, also announce that I will withdraw from the Dan Alliance. From today onwards, I will no longer have anything to do with the Dan Alliance. I, the Wood Spirit Taoist priest, also announce my withdrawal from the Dan Alliance. Another person stood up. In just an incense's time, nearly half of the hundreds of alchemists present announced their withdrawal from the Dan Alliance on the spot. Most people who refined pills valued their character and character. The actions of the Dan Alliance had caused them to be extremely disappointed. Although the remaining half of the people did not announce that they would withdraw from the Dan Alliance, they also found an excuse to leave in a hurry. In the end, only Elder Gu, Zhou Xinghe, and the rest were left on the spot. Their expressions were extremely ugly. Clearly, they did not expect the situation to develop to such an extent. This consequence was something that Elder Gu could not bear. Zhou Xinghe clearly realized the seriousness of the matter and subconsciously said, Elder Gu, what should we do now? Elder Gu wished that he could slap him to death. He sneered and said, Do these people really think that my Dan Alliance can leave just because they want to? What do you mean? Zhou Xinghe sensed the meaning behind his words and could not help but narrow his eyes. If these people leave, they will definitely spread the news about the Dan Alliance. At that time, I'm afraid that it will chill the hearts of all the alchemists. So, a cold gleam flashed in Elder Ji's eyes. Take the invitation letter back immediately and mobilize the power of the great Zhou royal family. You must kill all of them halfway. Remember, don't leave a single one alive. At this point, the killing intent in his eyes almost materialized, especially that Yi. He must have a terrifying background. If you don't want to be avenged, you must not let him leave alive. I'll leave and rush back to the clan through the Dan Alliance's teleportation formation. I'll kill that brat at all costs. Zhou Xinghe nodded immediately and left. Outside the Dan Alliance, Yi Chen and the other 2 walked. Hu Fei followed half a step behind and said respectfully, My lord, the Dan Alliance has gone too far. Why didn't you destroy the Dan Alliance just now? That's right. Master, if you hadn't said anything, I would have killed Gu and Zhou on the spot. Xiao Hei's eyes were filled with ferocity. Hu Fei added, "If it's not convenient for you to make a move, I have some power in the clan. I might be able to." "No need." Yi Chen interrupted him before he could finish. "Do you really think I'm so soft-hearted?" "What do you mean, master?" Xiao He was confused. Yi Chen turned around and looked in the direction of the Dan Alliance. His eyes flickered. "That old thing, the Patriarch of Pill River, has been hiding in the dark and spying on the three of us? In reality, I wanted to find this person at that time. However, this person seemed to be in an independent space. It was very difficult to find him." Yi Chen suddenly smiled as he spoke to this point. "I said that to him on purpose. If he knows what's good for him, I might consider sparing his life." Hu Fei invited, "Master, since you gave the Patriarch of Pill River 3 days, why don't you come to my Hu residence?" Just when Yi Chen was about to speak, he suddenly looked at the street as if he had sensed something. Unknowingly, a white fog was approaching from afar. In an instant, the three of them were enveloped by the fog, and the scene before them changed. It was no longer the noisy street, but an ice field. Illusion. Hu Fei's eyelids twitched. "We've fallen into an illusion." As if to verify his words, a sinister voice sounded in their ears, as expected of the genius disciple of the Hu family. "You actually know everything about us." P.S. Chapter 4, updated today. End of this chapter. Chapter 1193. As expected of a genius disciple of the Hu clan, to be able to speak of our methods in one go. As this cold voice fell, Yi Chen and the rest saw the endless ice field suddenly shake. Subsequently, 3 old figures appeared like ghosts. They were 3 old men dressed in embroidered robes, especially the leader, who wore a purple and gold robe and had a head of silver hair. His eyes were accompanied by swirling smoke, as if there were lightning surging within them. There was no aura flowing within the bodies of the 3 of them, but the pressure that they faintly emitted seemed to solidify the air. "Yin Yang Elders." Hu Fei's expression abruptly changed at this moment, thick disbelief surging in his eyes. "You guys are the great Zhou royal family's Yin Yang Elders." As he spoke to this point, he could not help but introduce for Yi Chen, "My lord, there are 3 grand elders in the great Zhou royal family who are triplets. They are Zhou Hongwang, Zhou Hongxian, and Zhou Hongtian. They are connected and have the same appearance. They are known as the Yin Yang Trio." At this point, he sucked in a breath of cold air and said, "Most importantly, it is said that they are all 5th cycle martial saints, and the cultivation technique they cultivate is the Yin-Yang harmony technique. The 3 of them working together is exceptionally terrifying. I didn't expect a junior from the Hu clan to know so much. You actually know the 3 of us?" Zhou Hongwang, who was the leader, looked surprised. Yi Chen said calmly, "What are you guys trying to do?" "What for?" Zhou Hongxian, who was in the middle, smiled faintly. "Of course it's for the heavenly elixir in your hands. If you know what's good for you, hand over the heavenly elixir in its entirety. Maybe we'll consider leaving your corpse intact." Heavenly pill. The eyes of the other 2 flashed with fervor. Even the royal family of the Great Zhou, which had once produced an emperor's throne powerhouse, only had a few heaven pills. "In other words, I'll die even if I give it to him?" Yi Chen said as if he was mocking. "I'll die whether I give it to you or not. Let me ask you, why should I give you the medicinal pills?" "Second brother, there's no need to talk nonsense with him." Third brother Zhou Hongtian laughed coldly. "That child Xinghe was defeated by this person. If word of this gets out, the royal family of the state of Zhou will lose all face. They must die today." "Zhou Xinghe?" Hu Fei's expression changed slightly as he said, "You were sent by Zhou Xinghe? This guy isn't just any ordinary kind of shameless Hu clan's boy." Zhou Hongwang's face was filled with murderous intent as he said, "Given your identity, I should have spared your life on account of old Hu. However, you should never have recognized us. Kill them." Zhou Hongxian took a step forward and revealed his qi. Xiao He stood in front of Yi Chen to protect him. Wait. Yi Chen suddenly interrupted the three of them and said while smiling lightly, "Have you guys heard what I said before I left the Alchemy Guild? I want the Patriarch of Pill River to kowtow and apologize within 3 days." So what? In fact, it was Elder Gu of the Alchemy Guild who wanted to kill you. Zhou Hongtian sneered subconsciously. I don't know if it's because you're too stupid, or if the royal family of Great Zhou has gotten used to running roughshod over the people in Dusk Province. Yi Chen shook his head lightly. Since I dared to get the Patriarch of Pill River to kowtow and admit his mistake, how can I not be confident? Kill them all. With that, he slowly turned around. All right. Xiao He, who could not hold it in any longer, grinned. Subsequently, an incomparably ferocious aura spread from his body. It instantly spread between heaven and earth like a primordial ferocious beast that had awakened. Under such pressure, Hu Fei, who was the closest to him, felt as if his mind was being attacked by a terrifying torrent. 3 old dogs die. Xiao He let out a long howl and took a step forward with a monstrous ferocious aura. He charged at the Yin-Yang elders in an extremely brutal manner. Die. Xiao He soared into the sky. An unusually ferocious black energy shot out from his mouth directly, turning into a black torrent that attacked the Yin-Yang elders. Oh no, retreat. Zhou Hongwang's expression changed drastically. As he reminded them, he controlled his body to dodge frantically. He did not expect the ordinary-looking young man in black next to Yi Chen to become so ferocious. Following an incomparably shrill scream, third brother Zhou Hongtian's entire body was crushed by something that looked like a giant claw of a ferocious beast. Even his divine soul was forcefully torn apart. Third brother. At that moment, Zhou Hongwang and Zhou Hongshuan's eyes were wide open. Their faces were filled with intense shock. The 3 brothers were all 5th Revolution martial saints. They thought that their strength was at the top of Dusk Province. They did not expect that one of them would die in a single exchange. Hu Fei gulped down a mouthful of saliva. That was a 5th Revolution martial saint. It turned out that even a servant of the supremacy possessed such terrifying combat strength. Perhaps only the Hu clan's patriarch could compare to such an existence, right? Damn it, Xinghe, that unfilial son has harmed us. Zhou Hongwang roared internally. If Zhou Xinghe had not said that Hu Fei was the only one with a cultivation base among the 3 of them, they would not have underestimated him. Kill him and avenge third brother. Zhou Hongshuan's eyes were bloodshot as he slammed his palm down on Xiao He. The space in front of him instantly shattered, forming a terrifying storm that attacked Xiao He, as if it wanted to shatter it. Good timing! Xiao He let out a shrill cry, and dense black scales suddenly appeared on its body. The scales flickered with a cold light, and then it took the initiative to face the storm. Rumble, the storm that was enough to tear a martial saint apart was completely unharmed. Subsequently, Zhou Hongshuan's screams rang out. Xiao He's punch pierced through his heart and lungs. Second brother. Zhou Hongwang, who was the only one left, almost fainted when he saw that. Then, madness flickered in his eyes. He abandoned Xiao He and took the initiative to attack Yi Chen. To him, Yi Chen must have come from a holy land or an imperial dynasty. Meanwhile, Xiao He was his personal guard. Therefore, he wanted to grab Yi Chen and escape. He was even prepared to prevent Xiao He from chasing after him. However, to his surprise, Xiao He stood where he was and watched him getting closer and closer to Yi Chen with a cold smile on his face. When he was less than 3 meters away from Yi Chen, he suddenly realized that he could not move his body. It was as if a pair of invisible hands had grabbed him tightly. He seemed to have thought of something, and his face was filled with shock. Senior, it's a misunderstanding. This is all a misunderstanding. Please listen to me, die. Yi Chen shook his head lightly as his eyes flickered. Rumble, Zhou Hongwang's body exploded into a bloody mist. Too powerful. My lord is too powerful. 3 fifth-rank martial saints were qualified to be supreme elders in the Hu family of Dusk Province. However, they were like ants before Yi Chen and Xiao He. Hu Fei stared at this scene in shock. Apart from the shock, his eyes were filled with endless fanaticism. As the three of them died, the environment that Yi Chen and the rest were in naturally collapsed. What they saw was still the noisy street. "Let's go back to the Alchemy Guild with me." Yi Chen turned around slowly and waved his sleeve. He took a step toward the Alchemy Guild. He was going to start a massacre today. End of this chapter. Chapter 1194. Alchemy Guild Headquarters. Elder Gu sat upright and sipped the tea in his hand. He listened carefully to the report from the great Zhou royal family in front of him. "Elder Gu, most of the people who left the Alchemy Guild have been dealt with." The man's lips moved slightly as if he was hesitating. "Only Taoist Wood Spirit, Guohong and his grandson, and the 3 people with the surname Yi haven't sent any news yet." "That old thing, Guohong, ran away?" Elder Gu paused, and the person behind him said in a deep voice, "Forget it. Guohong has a status in Luling after all. So be it if he escape. I believe that after this incident, he won't dare to gossip outside. But that Yi brat," he narrowed his eyes, and an extreme cold gleam surged in them, "he must die. Bring my exact words back to the great Zhou royal family. If we don't have enough power, the Alchemy Guild can send some powerhouses." He knew very well that how could someone who could refine heavenly pills be an ordinary person? But so what? This was Dusk Province after all, and as one of the 4 overlords, wouldn't it be a piece of cake for the Alchemy Guild to deal with a young man? Who would be able to find out? As for what Yi Chen had said before he left, he had long forgotten about it. Even if he remembered it, he would just laugh it off. That person was about to leave when he heard that. "Ah!" Screams suddenly came from outside. "What's going on?" Elder Gu was shocked. Just as he was about to go out to check, he suddenly felt the entire Alchemy Guild headquarters shake violently, as if there was an earthquake. Rumble, as the protective formation outside the Alchemy Guild trembled and collapsed, 3 figures walked in slowly. The leader was none other than Yi Chen. At that moment, many Alchemy Guild guards charged at Yi Chen and the other 2 with killing intent on their faces. "Die!" Xiao He let out a long roar. His voice was like a dragon's roar. The violent sound wave directly killed countless people with low cultivation base. "It's you!" Elder Ji's heart sank when he saw that it was Yi Chen. He then blurted out by instinct, "Why aren't you dead?" "Elder Gu, are you disappointed that I'm not dead?" Yi Chen walked in slowly with a smile. Elder Gu glanced at Xiao He in fear. Thousands of thoughts flashed through his mind, but he said, "Alchemy Master Yi, I think there's a misunderstanding between us. Who dares to barge into my Dan alliance?" Almost at that moment, a dozen voices were heard. Then, a dozen elders of the Pill Alliance charged over and surrounded Yi Chen with killing intent. One of them squinted and glared at Yi Chen. "Who are you? Why did you break into my Dan alliance?" "Elder Long." Elder Gu pointed at Yi Chen and spoke first. "This man has stolen a heavenly pill from the Alchemy Guild. We can't let him escape." With that said, Elder Long and the rest were immediately enraged. "How dare you? How dare you steal my Dan Alliance's heaven pellet? You are truly courting death. Everyone, kill him!" Elder Gu urged again and again. "Ah!" On the other hand, Yi Chen suddenly laughed. "I've truly experienced how shameless you guys are. Since that's the case, today, no one in the Dan Alliance will be left alive." As his last word fell, boom! Xiao He immediately turned into a terrifying black light and dashed out, directly facing Elder Long and the others. "Ah!" With a scream, a 3-revolution martial saint among the dozen or so people was smashed to pieces by Xiao He's punch. "This brat is a tough nut to crack." Elder Long's expression changed drastically as he roared, "Form the formation. We must kill him here. Form the formation?" Yi Chen slapped his palm through the air. It was like a huge mountain that covered the sky, whistling with terrifying waves. Ah! Under his palm, Elder Long and the rest did not even have time to form the formation. Many people screamed as their bodies exploded one after another, turning into a shocking bloody mist. Only Elder Long barely survived after spitting blood. Even so, his entire body was soaked in blood, making him look like a bloody man. Elder Gu, who was originally extremely pleased with himself, had already turned pale. His body was trembling violently, and his eyes were filled with fear. He was too powerful. The dozen or so elders of the Pill Alliance could not even withstand a single palm from him. Previously, he thought that Yi Chen's alchemy skills were amazing at such a young age. He subconsciously thought that Yi Chen's cultivation base was not that high. However, he regretted it now. If he had known that Yi Chen was so terrifying, why would he offend Yi Chen for Zhouxinghe? This person must be an 8th Revolution martial saint or in existence like the Patriarch. Stomp, stomp, stomp. Yi Chen walked toward Elder Gu with his hands behind his back. He smiled as he walked. Elder Gu, your people don't seem to be very helpful. Senior, Elder Gu knelt heavily on the ground, terrified. It's a misunderstanding. I think there must be some misunderstanding between us. As soon as he said that, he suddenly tossed a black gleam at Yi Chen. The black gleam vaguely looked like a medicinal pill. Subsequently, he turned around and flew into the distance. It was a medicinal pill similar to the heaven-blasting thunder, but it was much more powerful than the heaven-blasting thunder. He did not hope to kill Yi Chen. He only hoped to buy himself a chance to escape. Stubborn fool. Yi Chen's eyes flashed, and the black medicinal pill turned into powder. Subsequently, he grabbed at the space where Elder Gu was. Elder Gu suddenly realized that the space he was in was starting to distort. Then, it was squeezing his body crazily. Blurg, the bloody mist bloomed in the air. Die. Xiao He killed Elder Long, who was fleeing at the same time. From then on, apart from the Patriarch of Pill River, all the upper echelons of the Alchemy Guild were killed by Yi Chen. Hu Fei saw everything that happened. He felt a chill run down his spine, and he became more and more passionate about Yi Chen. The Alchemy Guild's strength was similar to his Hu family's. However, they could not even withstand a single blow from Yi Chen. One could imagine if the Hu family offended him. After killing Elder Gu decisively, Yi Chen's expression remained the same. He said in a mocking manner, "Why aren't you coming out after watching for so long? Do you need me to invite you personally?" As the void trembled slightly, a red figure quietly appeared. It was an old man in a fiery red robe. His face was covered in wrinkles, but he had a baby's facial features. He gave off an indescribable feeling of incongruity. It was the Alchemy Guild's master, the Patriarch of Pill River. The Patriarch of Pill River did not seem to see the mess on the ground. Instead, he looked at Yi Chen with a gleam in his eyes. "Thank you for killing so many thieves for the Alchemy Guild. I killed all of your Alchemy Guild's elite. Not only are you not blaming me, but you're even thanking me?" Yi Chen forced a smile. "Of course," the Patriarch of Pill River said in all seriousness. "I haven't been involved in the Alchemy Guild's matters for a long time. I left it to Elder Gu and the rest. I didn't expect them to be so daring. How can I not thank you for killing them for me?" "Ah!" Yi Chen suddenly laughed out loud. The Patriarch of Pill River looked surprised. "What are you laughing at?" End of this chapter.